These would bring an alliance between both clans, and Hanabi could be the future leader of the clan as they wanted. For his part, the man was more than happy to prevent one of his daughters from being sealed with the seal of the caged bird. He quickly showered, put on some formal clothes, made sure he didn't forget anything, and left the apartment. She moved across the rooftops until she reached the outskirts of the clan compounds. Then she walked to the entrance of the Hyuga compound. There at the entrance was the black-haired woman waiting for him. She was wearing a light lavender kimono decorated with flowers. His short hair was pulled back into a small bun with a couple of curly strands framing his face. He was wearing teardrop-like earrings that he suspected were made of pearls. His face had minimal makeup that highlighted his beauty without being excessive. The image took his breath away. He couldn't believe that such beauty was possible. Even less so that he was the lucky one to have his heart. How the hell he didn't notice her until after the academy was beyond him. Beautiful, he thought out loud without being able to help it. The kunoichi blushed slightly at the compliment and her lover's look of fascination. The guards guarding the entrance had to stop themselves from smiling. Like almost all the members of her family branch, they were fond of the young woman and wished her the best. That she was finally with the boy she liked was a good thing. It was a pity that she was not her heir, but at least she would not have to suffer the fate of the caged bird seal. The Uzumaki came out of his astonishment and extended his hand a little. A few seconds later, purple roses with thornless stems joined by a vine appeared in his hand. It was a little trick that Hachirama Ohisan had taught him. It had no real shinobi value, but it was very useful for giving your partner flowers without them expecting it. A small surprised gasp left the pearlized lips. She was surprised both by what the blonde did and by the beautiful roses she had created. He handed them to her with a cheerful smile and she accepted them with a soft smile. A pair of Hyuga women watching the match with their Byakugan activated made dreamy coos and sighs. It was so magical and romantic. Hinata had been very lucky with her partner. "Come on?" she asked him while offering her arm. She nodded and grabbed his arm happily. She felt like a dream come true. They walked comfortably in silence towards their destination. Several people stared at them for various reasons, mainly jealousy. Seeing the jealous looks of multiple girls gave the black-haired girl some satisfaction. She had been in love with the boy next to her ever since he saved her from some bullies shortly after starting the academy. It had been years of watching him from a distance, longing to be by her side. How many times did she hate her shyness and weakness? How many times did she envy Sakura for hogging her attention? At that moment he allowed himself to smile with superiority and triumph. He had wanted this for a long time and he was going to enjoy it. He deserved it. She had been the only girl who really realized what a good catch the blue-eyed boy was. Now everyone knew and wanted to catch him, well no. It was hers and hers alone. The Jinchuriki saw his companion's expression and had to contain a laugh. He could easily guess what he was thinking at that moment and he found it very funny. It's not like he could blame her. He probably would have done the same thing in her place. They arrived at the restaurant and the waiter took them to their table. They both read the menu card and gave their order to the waiter when he arrived. While waiting for their food, they had a pleasant conversation that mainly revolved around their shinobi career. The plates soon came out and they ate in silence, enjoying each other's company. Dessert was cinnamon buns, much to the pearlized delight. The Mokutan user thought his addiction to that candy was adorable. She reminded him of him and ramen. The Senju paid the bill and they left the restaurant calmly. Dinner had been wonderful. There it is, the scream brought them both out of their bubble. The sight of a horde of fangirls was not pleasant. The blonde picked up his date bridal style and jumped towards the nearest roof, where he began to create distance. The Hyuga didn't know whether to get upset with those girls for chasing her lover or thank them for putting her in that situation. Being in her arms was pleasant, and she blushed as she imagined the two of them dressed in wedding clothes on their wedding day. "I'm sorry about that. I didn't think my new position as clan heir would attract fangirls. I hope this doesn't ruin our date," she told him as she put her down. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun. It's not your fault and I won't let those girls ruin our night." "I'm glad to hear that," he smiled gratefully. They were already at the limits of the Hyuga clan compound. A few meters ahead was the entrance. They walked for a bit before stopping a couple of meters from the entrance. "Hinata-chan, He paused, not sure what to say. Then he let out a sigh and concentrated, I'm sorry I didn't notice you during the academy. You are a wonderful girl and you deserve more. I know I can't change the past, but I hope I can fix it in the future. Hinata-chan, do you want to be my girlfriend? The young woman's mind blocked for a second, before restarting at full power. Yeah. She shouted out of pure joy, surprising the Kyuubi container with the outburst. The kunoichi, realizing what she did, blushed with embarrassment. It didn't help that her crush laughed at her once he got over her surprise. I'm glad to hear you so excited, he commented with amusement, making the Geinins blush worse. See you tomorrow. He was going to kiss her on the cheek when she turned and gave him one on the lips. See you tomorrow, he said goodbye and ran back to the complex. Kakashi's apprentice stood frozen in surprise for a few moments before reacting. He touched his lips with a soft look and headed home with a smile on his face. Madara looked disapprovingly, not for the first time, at the last living Uchiha in Konoha. He was in taijutsu class and defeated his fighter, much to the adulation of multiple fans. It was disheartening to see how far his clan had fallen. Not only was the boy at a level far below what would be expected of an Uchiha his age, but he also brought out the worst character he could have. The Uchiha were always a proud, skilled warrior clan with a taste for battle. Many considered them arrogant, but it's only arrogance if you don't have the strength to back it up. The boy was shamelessly arrogant. He boasted of being an elite Uchiha and did not have the power to back up said claim. He was mediocre at best, and downright incompetent at worst. He felt embarrassed when he saw it. He didn't like it the first time he saw it. Though proud of himself, weak by his standards and completely spoiled. When he failed Team 7's test miserably, he only confirmed what he had already noticed. He decided to give her time to see if her attitude improved. Her failure would be a blow to her ego and pride. With so little luck and time, she might show some promise or at least an improvement in attitude. It couldn't have been more wrong. If anything, his attitude got worse. He saw his failure as Naruto's fault and lashed out at him. His face almost fell in shame when his summoner told them about the incident between them. We Uchiha may have been proud to a fault, but we never blamed anyone else for our mistakes. We usually deny the mistake, but we never blame another. Before the mission on Nami, he paid an occasional visit to Sasuke to see if there was any improvement. There wasn't. After returning from the mission, she decided to observe him for a longer period of time in case his visits were at their worst. They weren't. He had been watching the boy for a week, and he was becoming more and more disgusted. He felt insulted that this brat carried the Uchiha surname and wore his insignia. He wasn't worthy in any damn sense. His negative feelings towards the world had only increased after that day. Hope for a better future was fading again. The more pessimistic side of her was coming out. It was like drowning in hate. It wasn't a new feeling. He had already experienced it twice while he was alive. That doesn't mean you have to like him. He stopped seeing that mocking Uchiha and left. She really didn't want to continue looking at that pathetic sight. It was disgusting to see how he was hailed and praised for a mediocre performance and how he basked in the attention even though he appeared disinterested on the outside. The little pink-haired banshee only made things worse. What a pathetic, annoying creature. He moved through the village under a henge. In the rare cases in which a shinobi noticed him too much, he would use his Sharingan to make him drop the matter and believe that what he saw was the fruit of his imagination. It was a ninja village after all, and good shinobi could notice even the best henges if given enough time. He had to contain an annoyed snort when listening to a certain conversation. He had learned a couple of days ago of his summoner's new status as heir to the Senju clan. It was kind of funny and depressing that people believed that Naruto was a descendant of Hashirama just because he was a Mokotan user. He understood the reasoning, but knew they were wrong. Frankly, he was very seriously considering taking a page from his former friend's playbook. The Uchiha clan was going to end in a very embarrassing way if that Sasuke boy was the only one left. His obsession with revenge would be his downfall at a young age, and with it the clan would become extinct. The biggest problem he had was that he wasn't sure if his plan would work. Yes, Hashirama had gifted Naruto with Mokotan, but it was unclear if he actually altered his genetics so that he was a Senju and could pass on said genes. There was no point in granting the Sharingan to someone if he couldn't pass on his dojutsu to the next generation. You've heard? She heard one woman ask another. Know what happens? The other curious woman questioned. Apparently the Senju heir and the Hyuga heiress went out on a date last night. Do not tell me. What good news. My niece will be so sad. She had become interested in the boy. Yes, mine too. It was she who told me. She saw them last night with the rest of her friends. The young heir is so shy. Seeing the girls, he carried her date bridal style and took to the rooftops. Oh poor. So many years it is only clear that she affected him. Yes, I already said that his joking attitude was a mask to hide his pain and loneliness. Madara had to hold back a snort again. He had heard people's opinion regarding the Jinchuriki when he was summoned and it was not positive. It was one of the things he despised most about humanity, his hypocrisy. When he was a nobody, most people hated him or were indifferent to him. Now that he was a clan heir and the supposed descendant of the Shoden Hokage, everyone loves him. Hypocrites. He left the town and entered the forest. She needed a moment to think and meditate on her next step. Where was Setsu anyway? Wasn't he supposed to be the representation of his will? So, she should be here. Was his death the reason she couldn't call him or was it something else? Something didn't fit. Sai. So many problems and worries in her head. If only she had someone to share them with. Hachirama had been her friend in her youth, but things turned sour. Ei and Tobarama never got along. He didn't know Mito well, so he wasn't an option either. Naruto was a good boy and would try to understand his point of view, but in the end he couldn't. Plus there was the infinite Tsukuyomi plan. Sai. Again. He envied his old rival for having his little brother with him. He wished I had Izuna next to him. His presence would calm him down and he would appreciate his advice. He loved his brother and hated the fate he suffered. What had hurt him the most was hearing how the people of his clan believed that he had gouged out Izuna's eyes to obtain the eternal Manjikyo Sharingan. He was her little brother. The only brother he had left. The person she loved most in life. His death was the most painful experience he ever experienced. He could never have snatched her eyes away. It was Izuna who took them out and gave them to him. The last gift from him to his beloved older brother. Eyes whose light would not be extinguished no matter how much he used them. He may have been cruel and sadistic in his past. He would never deny that he was. He loved and still loves battle. Blood, pain, is what differentiates the living from the dead. But even he has morals and is capable of feeling love. Izuna, I wish you were here by my side, he whispered into the air. A gust of wind hit him and with it the sound of happy laughter. He frowned it. He felt that the person who was laughing at his suffering. Even though he knew it was illogical, he couldn't stop anger from filling him. He went to the source of the sound to see his summoner, or a clone of it, talking animatedly with Mito about their date the night before. Jealousy and envy flooded him. Everyone was happy except him. Why did Hashirama have to be the one blessed with having his loved ones by his side? Why not him? Seeing the Uzumaki woman only made his blood boil more. She wasn't even summoned with them. She came later. Why was Hashirama able to get his wife back and he couldn't get his brother back? He froze as he realized the answer. The brown-haired man had asked her summoner to bring her back. He could do the same and ask her to bring Izuna. Naruto, can we talk? The blonde stopped what he was doing and turned towards the source of the voice. Madara had been missing for an entire week. The reason? She didn't have the slightest idea. Of course, he answered and followed him. They walked for a while and ended up on top of the Hokage monument. The blue-eyed man smiled. It had been a while since he had been to that place. With everything that had happened in the last 2 months, it wasn't like he had much free time. What's happening? He asked her when he realized that they had reached their planned destination. I would like to ask you a favor, he answered a little awkwardly. He had only asked for 3 favors in his entire life, for if you counted this one. He wasn't used to it. Clear. What do you need? The Uzumaki was more than happy to help one of his precious people. Besides, the Uchiha had been very distant lately. I hoped this would help him. I would like you to bring back my little brother Izuna. I'm willing to give you Sharingan like Hashirama gave you his Mokutan if you do. It was true. He really wouldn't mind giving his dojutsu to his summoner. He had proven himself to be someone more than worthy. Plus, it could help you determine if this method gave someone their lineage individually or altered their genetics so they could pass it on to their descendants. Needless. I'm happy to help. Although you'll have to tell me a little about your brother. I need some information about the person I am bringing back so I can perform the technique. The black-haired man nodded without any problem. He remembered when Tobirama asked him how he could bring them and he said that he didn't use DNA and thought of the names from his history class. He understood that this was the same and he didn't mind talking about his brother. Once the Jinchuriki obtained the information from Izuna, he created a shadow clone and performed the technique. A coffin appeared where his clone was. The lid fell and he revealed a man with black hair and eyes. His hair was long and he was tied in a ponytail that reached down to his back. Madara? What is happening? She asked him when she saw him next to a boy with mustache marks. Izuna, I'm glad to see you again, he said with a tone so soft that it surprised his companion. Me too, brother, but that doesn't answer my question, he commented with an amused tone. Thank you for your help, Naruto, but if you'll excuse me, I want to catch up with my brother. No problem. See you later, she said goodbye and left them alone. A curious young man. Obviously he's not from the clan. I'm surprised to see you with him. Yes, well, a lot has happened since your death. I imagine. The breeze blew between the two Uchiha. Although they were both glad to see each other, memories of the last time they saw each other made things a little uncomfortable. Madara couldn't get the image of Izuna dead and Alice in the coffin out of his head. Izuna looked sadly at Madara knowing all the pain that her death brought. Did you manage to bring peace? She asked him after a moment of silence. His last wish before dying was that his clan and the Senju could make peace and unite so that the rest of the clans would follow their example. Yes and no, he replied with a frown. He didn't like to admit that he had failed to correctly complete his brother's last wish. Izuna gave him a sad smile and sat down on the ground. I hear you. And so, Madara told him everything he had done since his death. How at first she drowned in his anger and continued her fight against the Senju blaming them for his death. The multiple battles that he had against Hachirama until he defeated him and asked for the same thing as him, peace between both clans. After seeing his sincere desire and remembering Izuna's last request, he accepted and they began to build Konoha. The Uzumaki allied themselves with them due to their relationship with the Senju, but preferred to remain on their island. Other clans joined them over time and others formed their own villages following their example. With the village underway, there was a vote to see who would be the first leader of the village. Hachirama won and became the Shoden Hokage. He was not happy with it, especially when the two clashed due to having different plans to create peace. In the end he planned a coup to take the lead and carry out his plans, but his clan refused and they left him alone. Once again overcome with anger and hatred, he left the town. He spent some time roaming the earth aimlessly, devising how to bring true peace to the world. She had read the Uchiha tablet and knew that there was a higher level in his eyes than the Manjikyo Sharingan, the Rinnegan. With those eyes, she would have more power and could read the entire tablet. By each chance of life, when he was walking aimlessly, he fell into an underground cave. There he met a creature, Setsu, who claimed to be the representation of his will. Although not very sure at first, he was eventually able to determine that it was true, or at least partly true. Currently he had started to raise doubts about Setsu. He later found the Kyuubi and used it to attack Hachirama. His plan consisted of two parts: obtain some DNA from his rival and fake his death. He would have preferred to defeat him, but he suspected that even with the fox's help he couldn't do it. The fight ended as he had predicted. His rival had managed to knock the Ninetales out of the game and he was tired and injured. He took advantage of the dust that had been generated in his last clash and switched with a white Setsu that was posing as him. The brown-haired man killed him and with that he thought he had killed him. Once everyone left him for dead, he secluded himself in the cave he had discovered and implanted Hashirama's DNA. Unfortunately, the activation of the Rinnegan took too long and he was already an old man when he obtained them, so he had to alter his plans. He made Setsu give his eyes to an Uzumaki who lived in Aim. She also saved an Uchiha from being crushed to death by a rock. A admitted that he used the boy and manipulated him into going along with his plans after he died. A was already very old and was only alive because he linked his life energy to the Hidomasu, which lengthened his life. From that point on he had no first-hand information due to his death. Only recently had she returned because of the blonde she had seen before. A used a technique that Tobirama created, the Edo Tensei, to partially bring them back to life. A also told him everything he had experienced and learned during that time. A was quite embarrassed when he admitted that her first few days were spent almost entirely arguing with Hashirama, chasing him and throwing fire techniques at him. Izuna couldn't help but burst into laughter upon hearing that part. It seems like you've been through a lot, he commented when his brother finished his story. Jace, he stated looking at the sky. It had taken him hours to tell him everything that had happened. It was night and the sky was covered with stars. What are you going to do? She asked him while he also looked at the sky. Don't know. I would like your advice. Izuna hummed a little. Well, I'm with you that we need to find a way to perpetuate the Sharingan. That Sasuke you told me about is not someone reliable to continue with our clan. As for the rest, it's up to you. Do you think the infinite Tsukuyomi plan is the right thing to do? Madara questioned doubtfully. Maybe it is. Maybe not. You know better than anyone that the Sharingan does not see the future despite what others think. What would you do? Predict what matters to me. It's true that I would like to live in a peaceful world, but it's no use if I don't have the people I care about by my side. The former Uchiha patriarch remained silent, mulling over his words. The rest of the night continued like this. Both in silence enjoying each other's presence and the starry sky. Once the Jinchuriki obtained the information from Izuna, he created a shadow clone and performed the technique. A coffin appeared where his clone was. The lid fell and he revealed a woman with black hair and eyes. She was a woman of average height, with white skin, very beautiful, with dark eyes and a small nose. Her hair was long and straight. Both Madara and Naruto looked at the woman in surprise and confusion. Neither of them knew who she was, although she looked vaguely familiar to the blonde. Where am I? Asked the woman looking around her. Hey, who are you? The blue-eyed man questioned, confused at not having summoned Izuna and instead having brought her. I'm Mikoto Uchiha. Now, can you tell me who you are and where we are? She had her suspicions about the identity of the individuals in front of her, but she didn't understand where she was and what was happening. Her son Itachi was supposed to have killed her. Well, you'll see. Mikoto was meeting the other people that Naruto had brought back using the Edo Tensei. He never thought that he would meet Madara Uchiha in person, much less the first and second Hokage. He remembered Mito from when she was a child. He never really talked to her, but he saw her a couple of times. Everyone was more or less friendly. Tobirama was quite stoic and Madara had left with his brother Izuna a while ago. Apparently Naruto had wanted to summon it when she came out, but he succeeded on his second attempt. Talking to Mito was very pleasant. She was a cultured and calm woman. Her conversations were very interesting and she enjoyed them very much. The only thing she regretted about the whole situation was not being able to contact her son Sasuke. Time passed quickly. Mikoto adapted perfectly to the group. A had been watching his youngest son from a distance and it broke his heart to see him like that. A was no longer the cheerful and polite boy she had raised, but a melancholic and arrogant brat. She had cried more than one night for the fate of her two children. More than once she tried to contact Sasuke in a desperate attempt to make him change. Tobirama had been keeping an eye on her and stopped her from doing it every time. How she had hated him at first for stopping her from getting close to her little one. They had had more than one fight because of this and, due to their Edo Tensei status, their fights lasted for hours. However, he realized that his actions were not out of evil and were actually for the best. She had offered herself as a shoulder to cry on every time she had broken down. It was a sweet gesture on her part. Mito had noticed her growing feelings for her brother-in-law and had supported her, much to her embarrassment. Unknown to Mikoto, Hashirama had been teasing his brother for the same reason. Madara stared in pure shock at Tobirama and Mikoto holding hands as they walked and talked. She didn't understand what the hell had happened for those two to get together. Though she admitted that she hadn't been with the group much lately. The white-haired man had made his hatred and distrust of the Uchiha very clear in the past. Seeing him at that moment on what could be considered a date was not something he expected to ever see. "They make a cute couple," Izuna commented with a smile. Madara looked at him still in shock. "What the hell?" Sasuke walked through the village with his fists clenched and his jaw clenched. His mood was angry, which he had been in for a while. It really hadn't been very happy since that Cyclops Jonin, Kakashi, decided to take the dobe as an apprentice and send him to the academy. The first thing he did after his ninja band was taken away was go complain to the council. The civil councillors were always more than willing to do anything to satisfy him. He thought that he would recover his Hitayate shortly. It was not so. When he realized that he had actually been kicked out of the shinobi forces and had to return to the academy, he got pissed. He cursed Hatake over and over for hours. He only stopped when it was night and went to sleep. Although, if there had been anyone in his room that night, they would have heard him muttering in his sleep about his displeasure. The next morning he was able to think things through more calmly and smiled. Naruto was the last dead, the loser. It was only a matter of time before the silver-haired man realized his mistake and begged her to be his apprentice. When he saw him at the academy that day, he thought the time had come. He didn't imagine that he would be humiliated again. Having Sakura around was both pleasant and irritating. She loved the adulation and fanaticism he showed to her person, even if she never let it show. However, sometimes she became insufferable and her voice was too annoying. As the days passed, he came up with a plan. He would challenge the blonde to a fight and beat him, proving that he was better than him. That he rejected it didn't sit well with her. That he neutralized her fireball without even looking was worse. And of course, to top off his misfortune, that stupid Cyclops along with a man dressed in green arrived and took him and the Pinkette to the Hokage's office on charges of assaulting a shinobi. To say that the Sendame was not at all happy when he was told the facts was little more than an understatement. If it weren't for all the political support he had, he would have been kicked out of the shinobi program for life. Instead, he was forced to do community service alongside his fangirl, whose mother was a member of the civilian council and so she was able to save herself as well. His anger increased at that and did not diminish in the slightest. She trained hard in all his free time and always with revenge on her mind. He would kill Itachi for destroying his clan and somehow make the dobe, the Cyclops, and that senile old man they had as their leader pay for the humiliation he had suffered. He cursed over and over not having his Sharingan. With it, she could copy the idiot's training and become stronger. She needed to be stronger to avenge his family. Besides, he deserved it for being a member of an elite clan, not like the blue-eyed one. Or so he thought. Finding out that the Uzumaki was actually a senju gave some sense to his situation. He had not been cast aside by a clanless orphan, but by the heir of his family's rival clan. He also gave meaning to the rivalry they had always had. They had it in their blood. Although that news alleviated his unease a little, it did nothing to mitigate his anger and jealousy. In any case they increased it. It wasn't fair that they gave everything to the blonde and nothing to him. Even some of his supporters and fangirls had come over to his side. And now he had to hear about Naruto's relationship with that shy little mouse they had in his class, Hinata. The girl may not have been very strong herself, but she was the heiress of a prestigious clan. Yes, the Uchiha and the Hyuga never got along due to disputes over who had the most powerful eyes. He would never have taken a Hyuga as his first choice to restore his clan. That did not take away all the political power and possible techniques that the blue-eyed man could obtain by leaving her with her. The whole situation pissed him off to no end. He first took away the learning that should have been his. Then he removed him from being the center of attention of civilians. And to top it off, he was taking away the possibility of dating a competent clan heiress. Ino didn't count in her mind since she was weak and pathetic in her opinion. Sasuke-kun, and talking about the Yamanaka. Before he could do anything, the blonde had already climbed on top of him. He grunted at the unwanted contact, but she didn't seem to mind. Sasuke-kun, you can't imagine how happy it makes me to see you again. I haven't seen you since we graduated. How has everything been for you? I know you went back to the academy because of your forehead, but I'm sure you'll be out soon and everyone will see what a strong shinobi you are. Unknown to the member of Team 10, her lover's anger was increasing by the moment. It didn't sit well with her to be reminded that he had been forced to return to the academy. That she, a useless fangirl, had managed to remain a kunoichi when he was removed from being a shinobi only made it worse. "Get off me, you stupid fangirl," he snapped and shook her off. Due to the sudden push, she fell on her back, sustaining a head injury when she collided with the ground. "Sasuke-kun," the heiress whispered with sadness and some shock. "Leave me alone. You don't understand that I'm not interested in you. I'm only attracted to strong kunoichis. Not some useless stupid fangirl. How they haven't made you go back to the academy is beyond me. Your father probably must have good contacts." Those words hurt the blonde hard. It took all of her willpower not to burst into tears. It was at that moment that she wondered what she saw in him. She understood that she had suffered greatly from losing his family. But she had no right to treat her like that. "Ino," she heard a voice calling her. In a moment, both Shikamaru and Chobehei were at his side. It was the Nara who caught the blood in his hair first. "Ino, you're bleeding. Come on. Let's go to the hospital." "Don't waste your time with him," she told her partner and helped her get up. As they left, he sent the Uchiha a heated look. She may have considered the Yamanaka a troublesome woman, but she was still her friend and it angered her that the bastard had hurt her. Even the Akemichi, who was almost always calm and eating, stopped eating and frowned at his former classmate. The academy student just snorted. He couldn't care less about his opinion. How could he do that to the girl? Don't know. Obviously she is in love with him and yet he treated her like trash. I can't believe that back in the day I encouraged my daughter to pursue such an insensitive boy. The black-haired man realized too late that he was in the middle of the street, where everyone saw what he did. It didn't take long for the murmurs to appear. Everyone commenting on his treatment of his fangirl. What were once whispers of pity or praise turned to disbelief and contempt. He increased his pace in order to get home as soon as possible and get away from the masses. Without him knowing it, the news of what happened would spread like wildfire and in a short time everyone would be aware. His support would be severely affected and some factions would move in the shadows to use that to his advantage. Madara hesitated. Izuna had asked him to meet the other resurrected ones, but he wasn't sure it was best. It wasn't because of Hachirama or Mito, but because of Tobirama. He had not forgotten that it was the white-haired man who killed his brother. He knew it was a stupid fear. They were no longer at war and an Edo Tensei cannot die since they are technically dead. Still, she couldn't help but worry and let his mind conjure up the worst possible scenarios. In the end he gave in, reluctantly. Naruto had supported the younger Uchiha that it was best for him to introduce himself to the group. He didn't know why, but at one point it seemed to him that they both thought and expressed themselves the same. "We so resigned, sa," he nodded. They both smiled smugly, although the only obvious one was the blonde. He shook his head. It was clear that the conversation he had with Izuna had affected him. It was the only possible explanation he could think of for him to see so many similarities between his brother and his summoner. They moved quickly and efficiently through the tree branches. So it didn't take them 2 minutes to reach the place where the other 3 resurrected people were. From the moment they arrived at the small clearing where they were, Madara did not take his eyes off the Nade Hokage. "Hello everyone. We're here," the blue-eyed man announced with a smile. The brown-haired man and the redhead stopped talking to each other and looked at them, noticing the new person. The Uzumaki didn't know who she was and she was a little curious. The eldest Senju did know who he was and was happy for his friend. The Sueten user stopped writing on the scroll in his hand and looked at them. Outwardly, his expression did not change in the slightest. It remained stoic and showed no emotion. Inwardly, he blinked in confusion before realizing what had happened and cursing a little under his breath. Now they had 2 Uchiha in the group and things were going to get unnecessarily awkward. "Meet the new member of our group, Madara's little brother, Izuna," the Hinchuriki asked a little too theatrically. Even if he had matured a lot since the night of the Forbidden Scroll, he still had his childish moments. Plus she was always excited at the prospect of adding another familiar figure. "Now that I thought about it for a moment, I had many male family figures but few female ones. Should he find a partner for his uncles and older brothers or simply look for women who can act as sister and aunt figures?" He was so immersed in his thoughts that he didn't notice the slight tension in the air. He didn't have time to come out and notice her either because the Shodan quickly stood next to his old rival and put an arm around her shoulders in a happy hug. I'm very happy for you, Dara-chan. Now you also have your little brother by your side, the brown-eyed man commented happily. The former Uchiha patriarch's eyebrow twitched in annoyance. It didn't help that his little brother was snickering at him. Temporarily destroying his pride and dignity, he quickly made several hand seals and threw a large fireball at her. The Mokutan user crouched down, before running off with a big smile and laughing a little. Of course, Madara ran after him trying to burn him and yelling 1001 expletives at him. It believed that he had already gotten over his small moment of weakness in the past when he acted childishly by chasing and attacking Hashirama, but it seemed like his old rival didn't know how to stop pushing his buttons, or maybe he did. He was doing it on purpose. Given the amused glint in his eyes, he was betting more on the latter. Naruto was snapped out of his thoughts by the scandal only to blink in confusion at the scene. Izuna laughed humorously at seeing his older brother behaving like that. Mito shook her head, amused and exasperated by her husband's attitude. Tobirama shook his head in exasperation and annoyance. She performed a few hand seals and extinguished the flames. It was clear that the black-haired man had forgotten, or had not bothered, about the fact that they were surrounded by trees and other flammable things. Does this happen very often? The new resurrected man asked the blonde, trying to contain his laughter. Wow. It was very common at the beginning. But they stopped doing it after a week or so, she answered honestly. He was a little confused as to how all of that came about. He hadn't been paying attention at first and had missed it. Any possibility of this being maintained? She questioned without stopping watching the show. It depends on how angry Madara is and how much Hashirama mocks him in the middle of the chase, the genin shrugged. Izuna smiled amused when he saw the panorama. It's not every day you see your serious and regal older brother chasing and launching katan techniques at a laughing Senju while another goes behind them putting out the flames. The fact that this other Senju is the cause of his death does not diminish his good mood in the slightest. Not only was it hilarious, but it also warmed his heart to see his brother like this. Not because of his anger and exaggerated attacks, but because of the hidden happiness in his eyes. He knew that Madara hadn't been this happy since her father forced him to pull that trick on Hashirama. He felt guilty for having followed his father's orders and revealing his friendship with the Senju. If he were honest with himself, that was probably the main reason for the last request he made to his brother. Not so much her desire for peace, but for Madara to be able to spend time with his old friend again so he could be happy again. He looked askance at the blue-eyed man. It was certainly an interesting book. He was able to achieve what he couldn't, restore happiness to his brother. He knew he wasn't perfect. Madara still had a lot of darkness inside him and his faith in humanity was greatly weakened. But he hoped that, little by little, his brother would return to the way he was before. He had been very worried when he told her about his path of hate and darkness. The idea of trapping everyone in a genjutsu didn't sit well with him, even if it was one where everyone would be happy. The infinite Tsukuyomi did not seem like something to create peace, but to enslave all of humanity. He found it hard to believe that something so abominable was written on his clan tablet. He was always aware that his clan valued strength above all else. Also that many members were extremely arrogant because of the Sharingan. But he felt that the whole Rinnegan, Bihu, and Moon thing was extremely exaggerated and disturbing. It really didn't occur to him that one of his ancestors had created that. Even less so that Madara had actually been actively working to pull it off. She was just crazy. Anyway, as he told her the night before, in the end everything depended on his decision. He would prefer that he stay away from those dark plans that he had made in life, but he will accept any decision he makes and will be by his side. After all, he was his older brother and she loved him. The moment had arrived. After months of training and missions, the Chunin exams had arrived. Naruto would be lying if he said he wasn't excited and a little nervous. Of course, anyone who looked at him would only see fierce determination. Tobirama had made sure to teach her to control his emotions and put on a blank face. He passed by the genins who were easily fooled by low-level genjutsu. He mentally shook his head. She couldn't believe so many Chunin wannabes would fall for something so basic. Although he was mildly amused by Team 9's act. He went up to the third floor and met his teacher. Hello Kakashi-sensei. Here to wish me good luck? Yeah. Although it's not like you need it. Tenso and I are sure that you will destroy everything. He gave him a thumbs up. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. I will make you proud, she told him before entering. You already do it, Naruto. You already do it, the silver-haired man whispered before leaving in a shunshin. The blonde entered the room with a stone face. It was instantly bombarded by a murderous instinct. Multiple teams cast the killer instinct on him in an attempt to scare him. It didn't work at all. The blue-eyed man internally mocked the other competitors' pathetic attempt. On the outside, he kept a cold demeanor about him. It didn't need a killer instinct to make more than one person shiver. Used the look of him is enough. He scanned the room for the strongest potential opponents. Not only did he observe people's physiques, he also used his sensory abilities to measure their chakra reserves. It had been hard work to develop even the slightest sensory skills, but it was worth it. At that moment she could feel the chakra signatures within a half-kilometer radius and sense the chakra reserves of the people he was close to. If he was honest with himself, he was a little disappointed. He had had high expectations for the group of Chunin hopefuls, but they didn't live up to it. He didn't mean that there were no strong opponents. Only he expected more. Only 6 people caught his attention. A red-haired girl from Kusa. Her chakra seemed familiar to him somehow and she had high Chunin chakra reserves. A blonde from Suna. She could tell he took her training as a kunoichi seriously, her chakra reserves were of mid-Chunin level and she was curious how good she was with her fan. The red-haired boy who was next to the blonde. His chakra reserves were of low Jonin level and she could sense Bija chakra coming out of him. It was clear in his mind that he was a Jinchuriki like him. Then there was a team from his village that didn't give him a good feeling. 2 of them had high Chunin reserves and the other was elite level Jonin. To make everything more suspicious, they were suppressing their chakra signature to appear to have smaller chakra reserves. He could understand wanting to minimize your abilities to deceive the enemy, he himself was also suppressing his chakra signature, but something told him there was something more. His reflection stopped when he felt the 3 chakra signatures that were entering the room and the other 3 that were not far away. Team 10 and Team 8, in that order. He watched his former classmates with idle curiosity. It had been a while since he did a joint mission with another team. The only person from his old class that he had spent more than 5 minutes at a time with in recent months was his girlfriend, Hinata. He wanted to see how the rest of them did. Hand in hand, he could tell that Ino was finally taking her training seriously. She looked like she had stopped the diet and was in better shape. Shikamaru, on the other hand, was still a lazy genius. He could tell from his posture that, despite being relaxed, he was mindful of everyone in the room. Chobehei hadn't changed either and was eating a bag of chips. Jay. It seems like all of us rookies are here, Kiba half shouted as he entered. The Uzumaki had to hold back a sigh. He liked the Inosuka, but it would be better if she was a little more like his teammates. Announcing your arrival so brazenly in what could be considered hostile terrain was unwise. He approached them calmly. He knew that would draw attention to himself, but he wanted to be with them. More specifically with his lavender beauty, who had noticed him and was smiling at him with a small blush. Hello guys, he greeted them calmly. Hey, Naruto, ready for the exams? Kiba asked him. Of course. Kakashi-sensei wouldn't have let me into the solo exams if he wasn't one. Hey. I am glad to hear that. I still want revenge. You mean that you want to fight him again and try to win? Revenge is when you lose once and want to fight again. You already lost 7 times. Oh, shut up Sino. What side are you on? He protested angrily and his dog barked, making him sulk more. The rest couldn't help but be amused by the scene and some let out a few laughs. They should keep it low. See those guys over there? They are from him and have a bad temper. But what can you expect from a group of rookies? They remind me of me when I first took the exams, a young man with gray hair spoke. Excuse me, but are you? Kabuto Jacuzzi. Kabuto-san, is this your 2nd time in the exams? The Yamanaka asked him. Actually this is my 7th time, he replied. Wow. You must stink, the Inosuka mocked. Yes, good. These exams are not that easy. Furthermore, I have collected quite a bit of information all these years. I keep them in these cards, she said and took out a deck of cards. They may seem blank, but when I channel my chakra. The previously white card changed to show a diagram with the number of exam participants from the respective villages. While he explained a little what was in the letter and explained a couple of things about the exam, the blonde looked at the guy carefully. Just like when he looked around the room, he didn't think much of it. Maybe it was his apparent kindness, the fact that he failed 6 times, or something else, but each time he became more paranoid about it. He wasn't sure, but one thing was clear, he wouldn't take his eye off her. Do you have information about specific people? The blue-eyed man questioned. It depends. Who are we talking about? The blonde and the redhead are Suna, and the redhead is Kusa. Naruto here, responded the boy with marks on his face, earning a raised eyebrow from the aforementioned, what? If I want to beat you this time, I could use all the information I can get. The nine-tailed fox container only nodded. She could understand the reasoning and didn't hold it against him. Plus it would provide her with a valuable opportunity to see what kind of information he might have. After all, it was their own person they were going to talk about. We'll see. Suna bland. Here it is. Temari Sabaku. His teammates are his own brothers, Gaara and Kankuro. His sensei is Baki. She has done 79 D-rank missions, 91 C-rank missions and, wow, 5 B-rank missions. She also states that she is a futon user and mainly uses her fan for her win techniques. Following. Gaara Sabaku of Sunagakure. Same team as Temari. She has done 42 D-rank missions, 57 B-rank missions. She further states that she has come out of every mission without a single scratch. That caught his attention. Even if he was a Jinchuriki, he shouldn't have gotten away with it all unscathed. He himself was also a Jinchuriki and received injuries on his missions. You will have to be careful when you are around him. Let's see. Kusa Redeath. Here. Karin Uzumaki. Team Mats Hero and Kano. Sensei Masao. She has done 54 D-rank missions and 11 C-rank missions. She also says that she is the team's healer and that she has a bloodline, although I don't know which one. He couldn't care less about his team, sensei, missions completed or his abilities. At the same moment Uzumaki said, the rest became unimportant. He had to talk to her no matter what. And finally, Naruto Uzumaki Senju. Kakashi Ataques Apprentice. He has done 57 missions of D ranks, 13 ranks, 4 B ranks and, wow, 2 A ranks. His ninjutsu is Kage level. Etaijutsu low level Jonin. Genjutsu low level Chunin. He can use the 5 natures of the chakra and has the Mokuton lineage. Everyone in the room is shocked by the information and wonders how the hell he is still a genin. Gaara is the only one who gets excited at the prospect of a strong opponent. The blonde narrowed his eyes at the information given. It was too complete even if they were from the same village. It's true that he was missing a few things here and there, but it was still too much for a mere genin to know. Something was definitely up with that Kabuto character. Naruto sighed a little disappointed. With his sensory abilities it wasn't too difficult to find a team to fight with and obtain the scroll from him. Honestly, for 3 Chunin wannabes, they were pathetically weak. Shrug. It wasn't his problem if villages sent mediocre genins to the exam. He himself acknowledged that Konoha had registered several teams that were not prepared for promotion, but at least had the advantage of playing at home. He took one last look at the unconscious and bound shinobi before taking off. She already had the scroll she needed, so she was heading to where she felt the Uzumaki girl was. He wanted to meet her and this seemed like her best moment. He was jumping through the trees when he felt a presence, which made him stop and examine his surroundings. Whoever she was skilled. He couldn't sense his chakra signature and it was only his training with Tobirama for cases like that he could tell they were stalking him. I know you are there. Sal, she spoke with authority. Kukuku. I'm impressed that you noticed me. Not many people can do that if I don't let them. A supposed woman came out of a tree trunk. She had long black hair, black eyes, pale skin and wore a headband with the grass symbol. Who are you? You're obviously not a genin, he said with an intense look. The supposed kunoichi of Kusa smiled evilly. Kukuku. Hasn't anyone ever told you that it's rude to ask someone's name without first introducing yourself? We both know that you know who I am, he responded and prepared for battle. Whoever it was obvious that they were up to no good. She also suspected that she was stronger than him, but that didn't mean she was going down without a fight. Kukuku. True, very true. As soon as he finished those words, he launched himself at him at high speed. The blonde dodged at the last moment and threw a kunai at him a second later. His opponent also dodged as he laughed happily. The blue-eyed man grabbed another kunai with his right and prepared to make hand seals with his left if necessary. It was glad he learned how to do that after seeing the ice user use it on his mission in the wave. The black-haired woman realized what she was doing and smiled even more. She then unleashed her killer instinct on the bow. The Uzumaki tensed for a second before returning to normal. He had had to deal with the killer instinct of all of his teachers. Although that of the black-eyed woman was immense, surpassing that of Kakashi and Tenzo, that of the resurrected ones was much worse, especially that of Madara. Kukuku. You really are unique, Naruto-kun. See, taking my killer instinct head on and not being scared one bit. Yes, just what I was looking for, he licked his lips. The Jinchuriki had to contain the shiver that rose up his spine at that scene. It was certainly disturbing. Let's now see your combat skills. Without further ado, he faced him in a taijutsu combat intertwined with kana. Seeing that his opponent was much better than him, the Senjuer began with ninjutsu. A couple hundred shadow clones were always good for support. All element techniques, explosive tags, and many throwing weapons were released. What was once a lush forest became a barren clearing. It's not like the two fighters especially cared about that. Orochimaru under his costume smiled more and more at the spectacle. The boy was nowhere near his level, but he also wasn't as far away as he originally thought. Certainly the boy could handle most Chunins and some rookie Jonins, and he had not yet used his bloodline. Naruto, increasingly frustrated but trying to stay calm, began to bring out his most powerful techniques, which also involved using his Mokotan. He wasn't very happy because he suspected that was what his opponent wanted. It was certainly right. The Sannin watched in fascination and excitement as the Genin used the wood-style techniques. His smile couldn't have been bigger at that moment. Having seen what he wanted to see, he located the original and stretched out his neck to mark it. The blonde noticed this and inadvertently activated his Sharingan, allowing him to dodge at the last second. The snake summoner, despite being upset at failing, smiled wider if possible at this fact. He had been wondering what to do to obtain the Sharingan. Itachi was too powerful for him and his brother had not awakened him. He had considered the idea of taking him. Maybe she could activate it for him and train him to be stronger, since from what she had discovered the boy was mediocre at best. With the discovery that the blue-eyed boy not only had Mokotan but also the Sharingan, there was no longer a need for that. He had everything he wanted in one body. Once he finished gloating in his mind over his discovery, he briefly fought with the Uzumaki before marking him. Before leaving, and while the boy struggled not to lose consciousness, he introduced himself and told him that they would meet again. Unbeknownst to him, once he left, the Jinchuriki he had marked turned into wood and rotted. The true Senjuer emerged from the ground and sighed. The momentary inattention of his opponent gave him the opportunity to change into a Moku Bunshin and hide underground. He didn't want to think what would have happened if he had actually bitten him. Shrugging his shoulders, but with his sensory abilities at full power just in case, he went to where he felt Karin's chakra signature. As he jumped through the trees again, he frowned in annoyance. No, his annoyance had nothing to do with his previous fight. He had done his best against a clearly superior opponent. Knowing that this was the infamous S-class renegade ninja Orochimaru of the Sannin basically told him that he had only survived because he let him. He wasn't witty or arrogant enough to think he had a chance against him. No, his annoyance was about something else. Just as he could sense the location of the redhead's chakra signature, he could sense that her companions were not close to her. That was what bothered him. He couldn't help but think that he would have been in the same situation as her if Team 7 had been formed in the end. He was sure that Sasuke and Sakura would have had no qualms about leaving him alone and to his fate. He quickened his pace and in less than 5 minutes he was there. The Kusa Kunoichi was scared and looked around nervously. Within what was possible, it was normal. What wasn't normal were the bite marks she had seen when her sleeve slipped a little. It came down from the tree he was on and stood in front of her. The red-eyed girl screamed from her fright and jumped back. "Hello," Kakashi's apprentice greeted casually. "That?" the girl asked, confused at her casual greeting. She had been so nervous and scared that her sensory abilities hadn't worked as usual, so she didn't feel him approaching. Now that she was in front of him, he could feel her enormous chakra reserves. It didn't help that she identified him as the Senju heir. I said hello. It's good to meet another Uzumaki. Even if she's scared, she told him, joking a little. The Geinin's mind managed to overcome its fear and rationalize again. Hence she was left speechless. Uzumaki. Are you also Uzumaki? She questioned, surprised. Yeah. Naruto Uzumaki Senju, at his service, made an exaggerated bow. He wanted her to see that he wasn't a threat. If that meant acting a little childish, so be it. I didn't think there were others left, she commented, still somewhat surprised. Well, we are too. But I'm glad I was wrong, she said with a smile. The redhead couldn't help but smile too, and a small blush appeared on her cheeks. Now, I would love to catch up with a member of my clan, and I have every intention of doing so, but not here. Come on, let's go to the tower. But, my team. If those idiots were able to leave you alone in the middle of a forest known as the Forest of Death when there were also teams that could kill you just to get your scroll, they deserve to fail the test. We are going now. He created 100 shadow clones to spy on or eliminate the competition, picked up Karin bridal style, and began jumping over the branches to the central tower. He never noticed the blush her passenger had. Anko gripped her curse mark tightly as she forced her body to continue. She had to get to the tower and notify the Hokage about the presence of his former sensei. Not only that, but she also had to inform him of her interest in the Senju heir. With great effort, he reached the tower and went to the Sendame's temporary office there. He knew that old Sarutobi would already be there waiting for news after he sent those Chunin to tell him about the dead faceless Geinins. He knocked on the door hurriedly. She wanted nothing more than to rush in to report her encounter, but she had to respect protocol. Come in, Hiruzen's voice was heard through the door. Without further ado, he hurried inside. She was still weak and in pain. Her curse mark continued to throb and cause him pain, but she ignored all of that in favor of filing her report. Hokage-sama, I met Orochimaru in the forest and confronted him. He began to speak only for his listener to say. Anko, that was very reckless of you, he scolded her with no heat behind his words. I know, Hokage-sama, but I couldn't help it. The old leader shook his head, slightly disappointed. After he defeated me using the mark to cause me pain, he told me about how he had marked a promising boy possessing Mokutan and the Sharingan. He also threatened to destroy the village if the exams are cancelled. Sharingan? The Nadame's former student asked without being able to avoid it. There were only 2 Mokutan users in the village, but neither had Sharingan as far as he knew. I think he was referring to the Senju heir. He is the only Mokutan user in the village participating in the exam, the purple-haired woman offered. The monkey summoner already imagined that. The problem was that he wanted to deny it. He didn't want his grandson figure to have a cursed seal like the woman in front of him. He sighed regretfully. There was no point in denying the truth. She just hoped the boy had survived being branded. Reiko, I want to be notified when Geinin Naruto Uzumaki Senju arrives at the tower, she spoke over the intercom. Hokage-sama, the Geinin you mentioned has already arrived at the tower. He arrived half an hour ago or so. Thanks for the warning. Both adults looked at each other for a few seconds before running towards the young man. They had to guarantee the blonde's safety. Orochimaru's curse mark was no joking matter. The first thing they heard when they were close to their target was the giggle of a girl. Upon entering the room they could see a young redhead with red eyes, glasses and a kusa hitite. They only lingered on the foreign kunoichi for a few seconds before looking at the boy next to her. The blue-eyed man had felt the chakra signature of his grandfather figure approaching and was going to greet him when he was attacked by it. Confused, he did not resist the strange inspection she was doing around his neck and shoulders. Karin could only look confused at what was happening. Naruto-son, be honest with me. Did you encounter someone extremely powerful in the Forest of Death? Do you mean Orochimaru? That question confirmed to both adults that he had encountered the traitor Sannin. Yes, Naruto-kun, I mean him. And I want you to tell me everything that happened. Without seeing any problem, and anyway he planned to tell him later, he told him everything that had happened in his confrontation with the renegade ninja. Thanks to Kami, the older man sighed. It was nothing short of a miracle that the young man had been able to fool his former student. However, he was thankful that that had happened instead of the alternative. Boy, you've been very lucky. If I were you, I would be careful from here to the future. Orochimaru will not take kindly to this failure, the Mitarashi warned him. I imagine, the Jinchuriki muttered between his teeth. Wow. Now that we're calmer, I think we should talk about your Sharingan, the Sendame commented. My what? Kakashi's apprentice questioned, believing he had heard wrong. The Sarutobi could easily tell that the genin had not noticed the awakening of his dojutsu in the middle of the battle. Channel chakra to your eyes, he told her calmly. The Senjuer looked at him strangely but did as he was told. His vision became clearer and he swore he could see the chakra networks of the people in front of him. The snake summoner took out a mirror from somewhere and put it in front of his eyes, letting him see a two-tone Sharingan. His first reaction was surprise and disbelief. She then thought about it a little and realized what had happened, although she continued to feign surprise so as not to raise suspicions. It was almost certain in his mind that it was Madara's doing. The former Uchiha patriarch had already offered him the Sharingan to bring back his brother. It probably did it even if he told him it wasn't necessary. He idly wondered how Mito would react to the news. What will happen now? The Kyuubi container questioned. Right now, nothing. You are in the middle of the Chunin exams and you must focus on them. When all this is over, there will probably be another council meeting to talk about the subject, Hiruzen replied. I guess I should hide my Sharingan until later to prevent the council from trying to move the meeting forward. It would be appreciated, the monkey summoner stated with a nod. Wow. You don't think I really need it no matter who I'm up against? Except for Gaara and maybe Lee, no one challenges me in these exams. Oh, by either way, I want to introduce you to someone. Man, meet Karin Uzumaki. Karin, meet my grandfather figure and Sendame Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. The redhead was shocked. Even if the blonde claimed to have a grandson/diagonal grandfather relationship with the man, he couldn't believe that he had called him old to his face. Nice to meet you, Karin-chan. I'm glad to know there's another Uzumaki alive. Although I'm curious to know how you ended up in Kusa. Well, you'll see. With a bit of reluctance and nervousness, the red-eyed woman told those present about the deal her mother made with the grass village and what happened after her death. To say that the three of them were disgusted and angry was an understatement, they were furious. Anko couldn't help but find similarities in her story to what she had suffered in the past. Hiruzen couldn't believe that they would be so cruel as to force a girl to do something like that just after killing her mother due to chakra exhaustion. Naruto just wanted to go to that village and kill them all for treating a member of his clan like that, much less a little girl. You stay here and that is final. If any of those idiots from Kusa have the audacity to come after you, I will kill them. Fuck the consequences, the blue-eyed man proclaimed angrily. The young woman was going to protest when she was stopped by Ida Sendame. Naruto-kun is right. It's better for you to stay here. The Uzumaki were allies of Konoha. He will arrange all the paperwork so that you are recognized as elite kunoichi. Tears began to roll down her cheeks without her being able to stop them. Thank you, he sobbed almost without a voice. Hey, you're a member of my clan. That means we're family, and I won't let anyone hurt you, she assured him with a soft look. The redhead threw herself on him and hugged him tightly, burying her face in his jacket. The blonde didn't say anything and just returned her hug, trying to convey confidence and security. The two adults just looked at the two young people with a sad smile. Congratulations, brats, for passing the second test. Frankly, when I said the number would be reduced to less than half, I was expecting a single-digit number, Anko told the Genins with a sadistic smile. Naruto watched the teams that had passed carefully. The rest of the rookies had passed by Team 9, Kabuto's team, Asuna team, and Odo's team. It was a little surprised to see that particular team there. One of his clones had confronted them and they had not exactly come out well. That's what happened to them for trusting themselves and believing they could kill him. A ignored the speech of his grandfather figure a little, but paid attention to the Jonin who would be the supervisor of these preliminaries. A narrowed his eyes when Kabuto resigned for, according to him, being without chakra and with damaged hearing. A sent the Sendame a meaningful look and made two hand signals quickly and discreetly. A nodded subtly and could feel an Umbu move to chase after the suspect. Good, he coughed a little. Now we will start with the first fight. The selector activated and showed two names. Please let everyone except Jiraiya Kado and Ino Yamanaka leave the arena, Ayate indicated. All the unmentioned competitors headed to where their senseis were. The blonde smiled at Karin, who was next to Kakashi. The girl forced herself not to blush. She knew that the blue-eyed man had a girlfriend and she shouldn't get her hopes up. A only saw her as a cousin of his. Start, the gecko ordered the fighters. The most experienced Genin launched himself against his opponent with the intention of ending the match quickly. After all, the information about her indicated that she was a weak and useless fangirl. Damn Diezmember waited until the last second before dodging. She then used her opponent's momentum to knock him to the ground. She didn't wait for the man to be on the ground before she started performing hand seals at his maximum speed. Shinten no Jutsu. The brown-haired man had no opportunity to dodge or avoid the technique. The Mindwalker's body collapsed. Jiraiya Kado, Risain, Kabuto's partner spoke. Winner, Ino Yamanaka, the Kenjutsu master announced. The blue-eyed girl stopped possessing her opponent's body and returned to her body. She stood up and walked towards her team. She paid no attention to her fallen Genin glaring at her. Wow. It seems that Ino has improved since the academy, Kiba commented, impressed that he had won their fight so quickly. Yeah. After the incident with Sasuke, Ino has put a lot of effort into training him, Shikamaru yawned a little. Although she was glad that her teammate had gotten over her crush on the Uchiha, dealing with her demanding harder training was a pain. Please let Sakwabumi and Sino Aburame come down to the arena. Come on, Sino, you can do it, the Inosuka encouraged him. Hinata wasn't as vocal, but she also wished her teammate luck. You should give up. Because? Because you only have one working arm and I can tell you're limping slightly. Fuck off. You don't need both my arms to beat you. And the limp won't make you defeat me either. Under your responsibility, the Konoha Genin told him. Ready? Begin. The battle was not very long. The sound ninja got overconfident and, even though in the end he could use both arms, he ended up losing pretty badly. Shino may have gone a bit too far, someone commented when they saw how his arms were completely rendered useless by a small explosion caused by the plug of insects. He deserved it. That idiot was too arrogant, commented the Kyuubi's Hinchuriki. Aren't you being a little harsh, Naruto? Asuma asked him while lighting a cigarette. Not at all, he snorted. One of my Kagabunshin faced his entire team in the forest. It was arrogant from start to finish, even when I broke his arm and his left knee. Hence the limp, the man agreed wisely. The next match was Misumi Tsurugi against Kankuro Sabaku, the latter winning. It really wasn't a very exciting fight, but it made it very clear that the Suna Shinobi was a puppet master. Note that the bulge on his back wasn't a good sign of that. The fourth match was between Tendan and Temari Sabaku. It couldn't have been worse for the Kunoichi of Team 9. The futon user blew up all of her rivals' weapons. Plus she dropped it on her fan. It would have been worse for her to fall to the ground with all the weapons there were, but luckily her teammate dressed in green prevented it. Please let Shikamaru Nara and Kintsuchi go down to the sand, Ayate asked. Any information you can give me about your clone's encounter with her? The shadow user asked his former classmate. From the little I saw before defeating her, she is not very good at taijutsu, she uses senbons and my clone damaged her, if not broke her, at least a couple of ribs, he replied. The lazy Genin nodded and began formulating various strategies in his head. In the end he opted for the simple path after realizing that he used genjutsu with his senbon. One good blow to the head and she was knocked unconscious. The blonde could only shake his head. Shikamaru was definitely a lazy genius. The selector worked again and indicated the next fighters. Please let Naruto Uzumaki Senju and Kiba Inuzuka come down to the arena. Hey. Looks like I'll get the revenge I wanted, Kamaru? The little dog barked. It seems that this is the end of Kiba's participation in the exams, Sino commented. Hey, which side are you on? The brown-haired man protested. I think we already had this conversation just before the first exam. I am on the side of reason, she replied neutrally. Good luck, Kiba-kun. Even if you don't win, do your best, the Polia encouraged him, or at least she tried. What? Juto? She complained with a moan. Kiba, you have to understand that your chances of beating Naruto are minimal. There is no shame in recognizing when one is overcome, Kurenai told him. The brown-eyed man left grumbling about traitorous teams and how he was going to kick the blonde's ass. The blue-eyed man watched the scene with amusement and received a thumbs up from his sensei. There was no need to wish him good luck. It was clear that he would win. Ahime, the supervisor announced. Catch, Akamaru. He threw a pill at him and his animal companion turned brown. Going with everything from the beginning, eh? The Kyubi Hinchuriki commented with amusement. We both know that's the only way to bring you down. Based man clone. The puppy became a copy of its owner in wild style. Fangon Tusk. Both rotating drills headed towards their target. Doton, earth wall. The drills managed to penetrate the wall, but crashed to the ground. His goal was several steps to the right, performing some hand seals. Suiton, crash of water waves. The Suiton jutsu generated a huge amount of water around the user, which began to rotate and took the shape of a spiral vortex of water. The vortex later exploded into a giant wave, which swept the Inuzuka and her Ninken against the opposite wall. The collision was not excessively strong, but it served its purpose of leaving both of them unconscious. Akamaru in his original form. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki Senju. Dejui shook her head. Despite all of his training, Kiba was still overconfident and rushed headlong into battle. I would hope that having fought the other genin a few times he would know that that was a bad idea. At least Kakashi's apprentice went easy on his student. The scoreboard worked again and 2 more names appeared. Unfortunately, a few could see the impending disaster by reading the names. Please let Hinata Hyuga and Neji Hyuga come down to the arena. Naruto grimaced as he watched his girlfriend confront his cousin. I was well aware of the bad blood between the secondary branch and the main branch, but that was dwarfed by Neji's hatred of Hinata. I internally scoffed. In his mind, the boy was a stuck-up idiot with a stick up his ass as big as Sasuke. I believed in destiny and said that everything was determined at birth, and yet he did the opposite of what he should do if he really believed that nonsense. That made him a great hypocrite, but he seemed to not realize it or preferred to ignore it. Add to that her hatred of his cousin for something completely out of her control when she was nothing but kind to him, and she had the perfect mix for her to totally loathe him. Good luck, Hinata-chan. Kick her ass, she encouraged with a big smile and a thumbs up. The pearl-eyed girl smiled at him, took a deep breath and went down to the track. She was nervous about facing the other Hyuga, but she would be brave for his crush on her. Give up, Hinata-sama. We both know you don't want to fight, Neji told him. You're wrong. Yes, I want to fight. I'll show everyone how much I've improved, the black-haired woman proclaimed, glancing askance at the blonde. A failure will always be a failure. He admitted that I misinterpreted the Senju era in his day, but it was obvious that his destiny would be greatness due to his lineage. You, however, have shown since birth that you have no talent regardless of being the firstborn of the head of the Hyuga clan. You can't change fate, and fate has named me the winner. Stand down, Hinata-sama. This is my last warning, although a little shaky, she remained firm, as you wish. The match begins. Ready? Start, Ayate announced. The 2 Juken users engaged in a taijutsu fight. Both trying to block each other's tenketsu points. In the end, the member of Team 9 was able to close the tenketsu points of his opponent's arms, making him unable to expel chakra through his hands. Determined not to give up, the heiress gave up her clan's fighting style and used the academy's taijutsu style. Of course, she was outclassed in every aspect, but she proved her worth. Do you see how useless it is, Hinata-sama? You can't fight destiny. The only thing you will do is cause yourself more suffering. Practer, the fight ends, it can no longer continue. Hinata Yuga can't continue. The winner is Neji Yuga. You are wrong, Neji ni-san. I'm not the one who's suffering. It is you who suffers. You suffer for the death of your father and for the seal on your forehead, she said between gasps. You don't know anything, Hinata-sama, he snapped angrily. I know enough, Neji ni-san. Even if you hide it, I know that you suffer from the life you are living as a secondary branch member. I know you suffer from feeling like a caged bird. The white-eyed man's blood boiled and his vision turned red. He charged at his cousin with a hand covered in chakra and pointing towards her heart. The supervisor told him that the game was over, but he didn't stop. Before the Jonins could stop him, the Uzumaki appeared in front of the black-haired man and gave him a chakra-reinforced fist. Damn Nueve Member was propelled backwards and crashed into the wall. His jaw was completely broken because the punch hit him there. Try to hurt Hinata-chan again outside of a sanctioned match, and I will kill you. The last sentence sent a chill through most of the people there. Unconsciously, out of anger, she had channeled a bit of the Kyuubi's chakra. Orochimaru was excited for a moment at the thought that the blonde had activated the mark out of anger. He then frowned when he didn't notice any marks on his skin. He quickly realized that he did not have the cursed seal and gritted his teeth. He didn't know what had happened for him to no longer have the mark, but he would find out. Nothing will stop her from taking his body. Naruto-kun, the heiress muttered as she collapsed. I got you, Hinata-chan. And I'm not going to let you go. The poor lad fell unconscious with a smile. Soon the doctors came with a stretcher and took her to the infirmary. Pray that we don't face each other in the finals, Neji, because if we do, I will have no mercy. The genin still on the wall shivered at the sight of his cousin's boyfriend. His blue eyes were slanted and looked at him with a hatred and malice he had never seen before. Guy looked at his student with disapproval and a little worry. He didn't like at all what he had done at his party. He had promised her before the exams that he would control himself, but he didn't. He was now the target of the Sanjuer's wrath. This wouldn't end well for him. Once everything had calmed down, the selector turned on again and showed the next participants. Yes. It's my turn. The youngest green spandex wearer exclaimed happily. Cheer up, Lee. Show everyone the power of youth. Yes, Guy-sensei. The excited boy jumped over the railing instead of using the stairs. His opponent came down by the normal method. Ready? Hayde asked, to which the two nodded. Good. At's match of the preliminaries, Gaara Sabaku against Lee Rock. Start. The Uzumaki watched the match very carefully. It hadn't taken him anything to realize that the redhead was a Jinchuriki like him. It was also quite obvious that he was unstable and could kill his opponent just for the hell of it. He had to be prepared to intervene if necessary. The match was by far the most exciting that had ever occurred. Dan Nueve Member was very fast and strong. Unfortunately, he could not use chakra due to a birth problem. Guy, you didn't do it. The nine-tailed fox container diverted his attention from the fight upon hearing his sensei's words. Yes, I did, my eternal rival. Do what? The blonde asked curiously. Everyone gathered there was also curious about what they were talking about. Guy has taught Lee how to open the Ochuin doors. That made the Mokotan users eyes widen. Are you crazy? That technique is too dangerous for someone so young. Lee may have the toughest body after me in our age group. But that doesn't mean that he is still too dangerous for his body, especially being so young, the Sanjuer scolded him. You're right, Guy, the silver-haired man commented. I know the risks and so does Lee. He cannot expel chakra. Taijutsu is all he has. The 8 internal doors give it a much-needed advantage, he justified. Taijutsu is not all he can do. You don't need a chakra to learn to handle weapons. You could have taught him or asked someone to teach him how to use a sword, a kozurigama, a bow staff, or any other weapon. From what Kakashi-sensei told me, you yourself sometimes use nunchucks, the genin stated irritably. The green-clad jonin blushed a little as he realized he had never thought about that possibility. The other Konoha-senseis who were there shook their heads at their companion's carelessness. They understood where he was coming from, but that didn't take away his big mistake. Hee. Oops, he spoke embarrassedly. People continued watching the game. It seemed that with the new power of the Leaf Ninja he could defeat his sand opponent, but that was not the case. The negative effects of opening the internal doors took their toll on Lee. However, the Tokusatsu man was more or less unharmed and attacked him with his sand with the intention of killing him. Before the sand could destroy the young man's arm and leg, Naruto began performing hand seals at high speed. A appeared next to his leaf partner and did the technique on him. Mokuton, wooden wall blockade. A semidome covered both boys and the sand hit the structure harmlessly. Due to external intervention, Lee Rock loses by default. The winner is Gaara Sabaku, the supervisor announced. That. Not me, Lee, that's enough. If he hadn't intervened, Gaara would have killed you with his sand, the blonde interrupted seriously. The black-haired man wanted to protest, but an angry shout stopped him. You can't take my prey from me. I will kill you, said the Ichibi's Hinchuriki with madness and bloodlust. The game is over. A returns to the balcony. Juto, Naruto-san. The doctors will take care of Lee. The blue-eyed man nodded. His jutsu already dissipated. No. You will not deny me my prey, the redhead raved. Mokuton, prison with 4 pillars. The sand user found himself trapped in a cell made of wood. That didn't scare him in the least, until he realized that he couldn't feel his mother's chakra. What have you done? He asked a little scared. Enough, the Hokage shouted, Jonin, control your genin or he will be disqualified. Naruto, break the prison. The Uzumaki followed his leader's order without problems. The doctors took the injured young man away. Baki took Gaara out of there without wanting to push his luck. The last match, Dosukinuta against Chobei Yakimichi, occurred without incident. The Sound Shinobi defeated the chubby boy, knocking him unconscious. Once the fights were over, the winners went down and took a number to see who they would fight in the final. Very good. The matches remain like this. First match, Naruto Uzumaki Senju against Neji Yuga, the blonde sent an assy look to the black-haired man, who felt a chill run through him. Second match, Gaara Sabaku against Tino Yamanaka, he had to stop because of the blue-eyed girl's scream, not that he could blame her for it. Match 3, Sino Aburame as Kankuro Sabaku. Fourth match, Dosukinuta against Shikamaru Nara. The winner of the fourth match will face Temari Sabaku. Asuma-sensei the Mind Walker called weakly. Calm down, Ino. You are not forced to have to fight in your match. When the time comes, just quit. The blonde didn't need to be told twice. So what do we do now, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked his teacher. After the finals matches were announced, each Jonin-sensei brought out their respective genin. Karin went with them because the blonde was the only one she really knew and trusted. Wow. I guess we'll train on something. Not that you really need it for the tournament. All the higher-ups know that you are a level higher than a Chunin. Whatever you do in the tournament, you will get promoted. And that was the truth. Both the Hokage and the council knew that the Senjuer was better than the average Chunin. Actually his level was that of a special Jonin. A little polish and more experience in the field and he would easily be Jonin material. The only reason he entered the exams instead of getting a field promotion was for publicity. The Chunin exams were an event with a large audience and propaganda. There the villages sent the best they had in their genin ranks to make a good impression on nobles and potential clients. Naturally, the more promise and talent the aspirants show, the better it reflects on the village they come from. That still doesn't tell me what we're going to do, the blue-eyed man complained a little. Although the silver-haired man had been a good sensei as far as he was concerned, he didn't like his tendency to go around the bush sometimes. If I'm honest, I have no idea. Both Uzumaki looked at him with a blank expression. But, there is one thing I would like to teach you now that you have woken up. You know, he cut himself off in his sentence, looking askance at the redhead. Kakashi-sensei, if you mean the Sharingan, Karin already knows it. She was with me when the Hokage informed me of her activation. Okay, just making sure. As I think Hokage-sama already told you, it is better to hide it from the public until the final. You saved yourself hassle this month. Yes, I know. It's clear that nothing can be normal with me, she sighed. Being a Jinchuriki had marked his entire life. He had become the container of the most powerful of the bijou and the outcast of the town without asking or wanting it at all. He then resurrected 3 legends, and later 2 more, he gained the element of wood, became the heir of the Senju clan, and now had the Sharingan, not to mention the interest of the snake Sannin. Jace, his life was not normal, much less simple. See the positive side of things. You have friends, a girlfriend, a powerful sensei, and now even a distant cousin. Is it really that important that you don't have a normal life? The boy couldn't deny that. No matter how difficult or crazy everything was, he had beautiful people who loved him and supported him. At the end of the day, that was all he could ask for. He could live with the rest. What are you going to teach me? She asked him to change the direction of the conversation. What do you think? She asked with a smile. The blonde thought about it for a moment before widening his eyes. The Chidori? He questioned, shocked. Yeah. Now that you have the Sharingan, you will be able to use the technique without worrying about tunnel vision. Also, while I know you'll be able to deal with Gaara with your Mokotan, it doesn't hurt that you have a jutsu that allows you to penetrate his sand. But let's be clear, Naruto, this is an assassination technique. You should only use it against enemies. Never against friends or allies, he told her as seriously as possible. Don't worry, Kakashi-sensei. I understand. I promise you that I will never use it against a comrade, and you know that I never break my promises. The Hataki's stern gaze dissolved into a soft smile. He knew that his student always kept his promises. And if he ever breached it, it would be due to external factors. He would never willingly break a promise and would give his all to carry it out. Wow. It has been an intense day. I recommend that you rest. Tomorrow we will start with training. I also assume that you will have to discuss living arrangements with your cousin and want to go visit your girlfriend in the hospital. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. See you tomorrow. The former Anbu captain gave him a smirk and a thumbs up before leaving in a shunshin. Come on, Karin. Let's go to the Hokage tower. Gigi should be there by now, she indicated. Don't you think it's disrespectful to call the Hokage Hihi? A is the leader of your village. Plus you refer to him as Hokage when you talk to your sensei. Because now no? The boy shrugged. Sometimes I call him Hokage. Sometimes I call him Hihi. Other times I call him old. That's really where the point hits me, and it's not official business. I told you, I have a grandson/diagonal grandfather relationship with him. The red-eyed girl could only shake her head at his response. Hiruzen Sarutobi was a highly respected figure throughout the elemental nations, and yet he did not care about the young man in front of him. He didn't know if she should be amused or exasperated. In a short time they arrived at the Hokage tower and the secretary let them into the office. The Sendame was already there, muttering under his breath as he fought against the paperwork. The blue-eyed man wondered, not for the first time, why he didn't use shadow clones to help him with his task. Ah, Naruto-kun, Karin-chan, I'm glad to see you both. First of all, congratulations on your performance in the preliminaries and reaching the finals. Your fight, although brief, was well thought out. Most of all, I am proud of you for your actions to protect Hinata-chan and Lee-kun. Although I feel like you went a little overboard with Neji, but I understand your anger about it. I knew that the Jondai Maye's son was a kind-hearted young man. He had matured a lot since the night of the Forbidden Scroll incident, but that didn't take away his kind heart. However, just like his sensei, he had no qualms about eliminating threats and making anyone who messed with someone important to him pay. Anyway, he sighed, I guess you're not here to talk about the exams but about Karin-chan's situation. They both nodded, correct. You have already filled out all the necessary papers. He opened a drawer in her desk and took out a hetaid with the leaf symbol. Welcome to our shinobi forces, Karin-chan. From today you are a kunoichi of Konoha. Thank you, Hokage-sama. He picked up the hetaid and tied it to his head. His old hetaid from Kusa he had thrown away days ago. He didn't want to have anything to do with that town anymore. Well. Now we just have to deal with the housing issue. Actually, I think it's time for me to move to full Senju. This way I can invite Karin to live with me without worrying about space. Sounds good to me, Naruto-kun. He nodded and took out a map and a piece of paper with instructions. The map indicates the location of the complex, although I imagine you already know where it is. The paper has instructions for undoing the barrier seal around the compound and where the keys to all the houses in the compound are located. Thank you, he thanked him while taking the two objects. You are welcome. By the way, what are you going to do with your old apartment? Don't know. I haven't really thought about it yet, she answered honestly. Don't worry too much about it. The place is yours, so you can decide to keep it without any problem. Thank you again, and we won't bother you anymore. Come on, Karin. Let's go to our new home. The monkey summoner smiled at the exiting couple before lowering his gaze to the paperwork. Someday I will find the key to defeat you, he said with fire in his eyes. The Umbu guarding him could only sweat a drop at the words and actions of their leader. Getting to the Sanjo compound was no problem. As the Hokage pointed out, Naruto already knew where he was. Getting in was a little more complicated. A blood and chakra sample was required to confirm that whoever entered was a Senju. Luckily, Tobirama had already foreseen this and made sure in advance that the blonde could enter. Because the blue-eyed man was the heir, the house of the head of the clan corresponded to him. At first he wanted to refuse since he felt that this was Tsunade's house, but all the resurrected agreed that he was the right fit. Upon arriving at the house, they explored the place a little and then the Jinchuriki left several shadow clones to clean while the original and Karin went to the hospital to visit Hinata. Once they left and walked away, Akagabunsin left to see the Edo Tensei. He didn't do it before because he knew the redhead was a censor and they didn't want to raise suspicions. Hello, he greeted everyone. Surprisingly, all five of them were in the same clearing. Hello Naru-chan, Hachirama returned the greeting with a smile. How did you do on the exams? The white-haired man asked him. Very good. The first test was a written exam where we were supposed to cheat to get the answers. I quickly realized the real test, but I didn't need to cheat to answer the questions. The second test consisted of obtaining a scroll from Earth and one from Heaven and going to the Central Tower. The test was held at Training Ground 44. It was quite easy to obtain the scroll I needed. He even sent clones to eliminate the competition. The only problem I had was the intervention of Orochimaru of the Sannin. He tried to mark me with a cursed seal, but I managed to trick him and he marked a wooden clone. He also met and saved an Uzumaki. Her name is Karin. She has Kagura's and the clan's medicinal chakra. She meets the original. There were preliminaries because too many Genins passed the second test. He faced Kiba and defeated him, again. In a month there will be the finals. My opponent is Neji Yuga, Hinata-chan's cousin. He planned to beat him up in our fight. The idiot tried to kill Hinata-chan, he growled, oh, and I also awakened my Sharingan during my battle with Orochimaru. You think that was your thing, right Madara-sensei? Mito was a little worried when she heard about the Sannin. She then very happy about the existence of another Uzumaki. She was glad that her clan was not totally extinct. She frowned at Neji's assassination attempt. She became furious when she heard the last part. Madara, do you have anything to say about this? She questioned with a sickeningly sweet voice. The former Uchiha patriarch, who was previously smiling upon hearing that his summoner awakened his dojutsu, broke out in a cold sweat helplessly. Even if it wasn't common knowledge, the black-eyed woman was as fearsome as his rival and himself. It was never good news for the one who pissed her off. Well, he tried to explain himself but the words didn't come out. The evil look he was giving her only made a shiver run through her. In the end she did the smartest thing to do. Run through her laugh as if there was no tomorrow. Come back here, the woman demanded as she chased him. The brown-haired man laughed when he saw his wife chasing his old friend. The scene was quite funny and he was glad that he wasn't the one being chased for once. The red-eyed man shook his head in exasperation. He sensed that something like that would happen sooner or later. Not that he could entirely blame the raven-haired boy for what he did. His family was on the brink of extinction and the two that remained only brought disgrace to his family. It was only natural that he wanted a worthy heir. The only thing that bothered him was that he was his heir that he had chosen. Although he also knew that the chances of anyone else obtaining the Sharingan by that method were almost zero. Izuna could only watch his older brother being chased without knowing if he should help him or not. The truth was that the redhead was scaring him a little. His chains looked very sharp and dangerous. Tobirama-sensei. Yes, Naruto? Do you know how I obtained the Sharingan? I imagine that Madara-sensei did the same as Hachirama Ohisan, but I don't understand how my body has assimilated it so well. I have a theory about it. The blonde looked at him expectantly. When you summoned us with the Edo Tensei, you used Kage-Bunshin as a sacrifice. The technique tied us to these clones and adapted them to be replicas of our former bodies. Keep in mind that the Kage-Bunshin is a mass of chakra with the shape, knowledge and personality of the caster. I think the last hand seal you added to the technique was what gave consistency to the body so that we didn't dissipate with one hit but reformed like my original jutsu. Even so, it does not mean that, in essence, our bodies are made from your chakra. When both my brother and Madara injected you with their Edo Tensei cells, what they were injecting into you was your chakra modified to appear like our old bodies. I think that's why your body gained its abilities without any rejection. I think I understand. Your cells are made from my chakra and my body recognizes them as mine, although slightly altered. I'm wrong. No. That's exactly what I said. An explosion was heard in the background and the brown-eyed man fell to the ground laughing. Teacher and student turned to see what was happening. They answer? Mito must have used an explosive tag since there was a small smoking crater and Madara was slowly reforming. Did you have to do that? She yelled at the Uzumaki when she reformed while she grabbed her butt. That should teach you not to do something so reckless again, he replied with a sadistic smile. Don't tell me Mito used that, commented the Suetan user without being able to avoid it. The Shodame's laughter increased and he clutched his stomach while still on the ground. Izuna watched the scene with wide open eyes and mouth. What do you mean by that? The blue-eyed man asked confused. Just a shameful and quite lethal movement originating from the whirlpool, he replied dryly. That. She was still confused. Mito-chan, ha ha ha, he hit him, ha ha ha, with a kuna, ha ha ha, with an explosive tag, ha ha ha, in his, ha ha ha, ass, ha ha ha, the other Mokotan user told him with a laugh. The clone blinked in confusion a few times until the explanation registered in his mind. What? You're telling me that Kakashi-sensei's 1000-year death technique is based on Mito Oba-chan's technique? The brown-haired man's laughter only increased at his student's scream. De nidai me sue tropez. Had someone really adapted Uzumaki's technique? In another part of the village, a certain silver-haired jonin sneezed. It was reading the beloved Icheicha when due to sneezing he hit a woman with the book on her ass. The woman, a kunoichi, turned to look at the man and instantly recognized what she was reading. Pervert, he shouted before starting to hit him. The passers-by turned deaf and blind to the unilateral beating. The women were with the kunoichi and the men were not brave or stupid enough to get involved. Why do I feel like Ibe getting Kakashi-sensei into trouble without meaning to? Naruto asked himself internally. He shrugged and continued conversing with Hinata and Karin. She could hear distant screams of pain through the window, but none of the three gave it much importance. Naruto's sweat dropped when he saw his sensei's state. Although most of his body and face were covered, he could see obvious signs that he was beaten. The highlight was a couple of bumps on his head that stuck out of his hair. He also had the area around his visible as slightly swollen and blackened. It was noticeable that he moved with some stiffness and even with the mask on he could tell that that part had also been hit. Good. Now that you have arrived, we can start training. I know you have already completed the Raiden chakra to chakra conversation exercises. After all, I helped you with them. These will make it easier for you to create the Chidori, but don't get confused. This technique is probably one of the most difficult B-rank jutsus there is. You will have to concentrate a considerable amount of rays in your hand and you must control them so that they do not dissipate or attack your own arm. At first we will make it stationary and check its strength. Then we will do it in the race. Each one has its advantages. The first is faster and therefore you do not have to control the technique for a long time. The second gives you more momentum and therefore greater penetration, he explained with a slightly distorted voice. Obviously his jaw was not fully recovered. For me perfect. By either way, will I continue training with Tenso-sensei? Yeah. This week you will train only with me. From the next one you will train with both of them again, she responded with her patented smile. So, starting next week I return to the normal training schedule. No. Essentially yes. Only the time we normally dedicated to missions is free for you. Take advantage of it to visit your girlfriend or spend time with your cousin. Take it for granted. The morning passed peacefully. Despite having mastered the two right and elemental manipulation exercises, it was not easy to accumulate and control the rays. More than once he had to cut the technique to avoid electrocution. At my ultime, teacher and student separated. The blonde went to look for his pseudo-cousin and the silver-haired boy went who knows where. The blue-eyed man moved through the town with the confidence of someone who knows the place intimately. After all, as a former prankster he had to know every part of his home in detail if he wanted to succeed in the prank and escape from it. He arrived at the Senju compound, deactivated the barrier and entered. She headed to his house, which he shared with the Uzumaki, and waited at the door. Naruto-kun, you finally arrived. You were late. The Hinchuriki chuckled. Oh come on, Karin-chan. We both know that I have arrived on time. The redhead rolled her eyes, but there was a slight pink tint to her cheeks. Although she knew it wasn't romantic at all, he couldn't help but blush slightly when he heard her called Karin-chan. Yes. Whatever you say. Now let's go now. I'm hungry. The Mokotan user laughed again. The red-eyed girl was somewhat bipolar. One moment she was loving and even a little shy, and the next she was tough and determined. He found it fun. They left the premises and headed towards Ichiraku. Apparently the love of ramen was an Uzumaki trait. Neither of them could get enough. Fortunately for their bodies, they both knew they couldn't exclusively eat ramen all the time. Although Chuchi wouldn't have had any problem with that. After eating half a dozen bowls, in Karin's case, and a full dozen, in Naruto's case, the two Genins left the stand satisfied, leaving a ramen chef anticipating an increase in his profit soon. Let's go to the hot springs. He always wanted to try them. I don't know. We just ate. Besides, I would like to visit Hinata-chan before returning to training. Please, he put his hands together and gave him puppy eyes. Good. I'll accompany you to the hot springs, she agreed reluctantly. But then I'll go to the hospital. I really don't feel like taking a bath right now. Brilliant. Thank you. Go. She grabbed his arm and pulled him up. If he had wanted to, he could have let go, but he let her drag him. They soon arrived at the reception of the hot spring establishment. He paid for the former Kusaku no Ichi to enjoy the place and then left. He had planned to go to a store to buy cinnamon buns for his girlfriend. Surely enjoying her favorite food would lift her spirits. As he was leaving, he heard some giggling. She narrowed her eyes in annoyance as she recognized what kind of giggles they were. After all, Kakashi-sensei blurted them out quite often when she read her beloved orange book. He changed the direction of his steps to find the source of the sound. It didn't take long to reach the place and see who was causing the laughter. He was a man in his 50s, long white hair, kabuki-style clothing, and wooden geta. A mark appeared on her forehead as she watched him spy on the women's bathroom. He wasn't going to tolerate any shameless pervert seeing women naked, much less his cousin. A dark smile appeared on his face. It was about time she could put into practice one of the many things that Mito Oba-chan taught her. He took out a kunai and placed a low performance tag on it. Then, she stealthily approached the unsuspecting man. Jiraiya was enjoying his research without a care in the world. That cost him dearly when he heard, secret whirlpool technique, 1,000 years of burning pain. A kunai was embedded in his rear, making him jump and scream. Then the explosive tag activated and sent him flying slightly with the kunai buried deeper in his ass. The scream, already unmasculine, became completely feminine. The copy-nin apprentice shook off his hands and set off on his way whistling lightly. He had already done his good deed for the day. Free those poor women from the scrutiny of a dirty old man. Yes, he deserved a reward. Maybe while I was buying cinnamon buns for Hinata-chan I should grab something sweet for him. So he could eat it with his partner while he told him what he had done. She hoped she could get a few laughs out of him, although she might feel sorry for him. He had a very kind heart. Unbeknownst to him, or Karin, the toad Sennin ended up falling several meters away from the hot springs with his head buried in the ground and the kunai still stuck in the hole. When the women who heard the scream came out to investigate and saw the scene, they didn't feel the need to punish the pervert further and went back inside. They weren't going to help the man either. Damn. Who the hell taught that Gaki that demon technique? He complained weakly from his position on the ground. As he jumped, he could see the face of his attacker. He didn't have to be a genius to realize that this was the son of his former student. She was practically a carbon copy of his father, except for the whisker marks. I need to talk to Sensei about Naruto. He tried to get up, but stopped when the kunai tried to dig deeper, but first I have to get rid of that. Dan Uzumaki for creating such a ruthless technique. It wouldn't be until almost an hour later, after being practically raped from behind by the kunai, that he was able to remove the evil object. With great difficulties, and a ridiculous gait, he went to the hospital. The talk with his old teacher could wait. First he had to go to the hospital to have a doctor or nurse cure him of his hardship. Hiruzen was doing paperwork as usual. The list of finalists for the exam had been published the day before. Invitations for VIPs would be sent out during the next week. All she had to deal with was the thrice damned daily paperwork. She still didn't understand how his predecessors and his successor were able to deal with it without difficulty. The slight sound of the window opening did not faze him. He knew the person who was about to enter very well. No matter how much he had asked him in the past to come through the door, he never did. He had come to accept him even if he didn't like him. "I see you're back, Jiraiya," she said as she turned slightly to look at him. "Sensei," he greeted and entered with a slight shudder. He raised an eyebrow when he saw that some movements were difficult for him. Then he shrugged, thinking that they had caught him in the hot springs and given him a beating from which he still hadn't recovered. "What brings you here?" she asked him while he prepared his pipe and lit it. He was almost sure he would need the nicotine to get through the conversation they were going to have next. "I came to ask, what the hell were you thinking when you allowed that Gaki to learn that technique from hell?" he questioned, annoyed to no end. "Sorry?" He had no idea what his former student was talking about. "Don't play innocent with me, Sensei. Obviously you had to be the one to teach him or give him the instructions to do that technique," he accused him. The Sarutobi frowned. He didn't at all like being blamed for something when he didn't even know exactly what they were accusing him of. "Be clear, Jiraiya. Who are you talking about and what technique are you referring to?" he demanded to know in his commanding voice. "I'm talking about Naruto and that hell technique of his clan." Dan Uzumaki. He blinked a few times, completely confused. Then something in his mind clicked. "Oh. You refer to that technique?" "I didn't know Naruto-kun knew her," she commented calmly and took a drag on her pipe. "How can you stand there so calmly with this information?" he asked incredulously. "Oh, please, Jiraiya. It's not that big of a deal. Beyond being a rather embarrassing technique for those who suffer it, it is not harmful," she dismissed with a disdainful movement of her hand. "What is not harmful? Tell that to my poor ass," she protested almost in a shout. The Hokage blinked, taken aback by the white-haired man's outburst. It didn't take her 2 seconds to realize what happened and why he was so upset. Because of the laughter that wanted to come out of his throat, he choked on the smoke and coughed several times. Still, she could hear the faint giggles between her coughs. Yes, laugh. "I would like to see you in my place," he complained still loudly. "Jiraiya," he coughed a few more times, "what did you do to make Naruto-kun use that technique on you?" he questioned. "Nothing," he responded immediately. The Sendame sent him a clear look that he wasn't buying it. He may have been watching the girls in the hot springs, he admitted somewhat sheepishly, but that's no reason for him to do that. She insisted. "Jiraiya, recently Naruto-kun has found a member of his clan, whom he considers a cousin. She was probably in that place and she didn't appreciate you spying on her," he informed her sternly. "Well, how would I know?" she tried to defend herself. "Jiraiya," he scolded with a frown. He understood that the man was a super pervert, as he called himself. He also liked his Aika books. But he thought this was going too far. Okay. Maybe it's my fault," the older man sent him a flat look. "Anyway, changing the subject, how is the brat doing? He heard that he is now the Senju heir." "How did that happen?" "Naruto-kun has the Mokotan. You know as well as I do that the only man who had Mokotan naturally before Naruto-kun was Shodame-sama. It's not very difficult to deduce that they must be related, she explained neutrally. But how? Neither Minato nor Kushina were related to him that we knew. You said it. That we knew. Kusina may very well be related to Shoden-sama thanks to the relationships between Senju and Uzumaki. Or maybe she inherited it from Minato. We both know that he was an orphan and it is unknown exactly who his family was. Wow. Shit. That brat is related by blood to 3 of the 4 Hokages. And he has a family romantic relationship with you. That makes 4 out of 4. Indeed. Naruto Koen is destined for greatness and I have no doubt that in the future he will become Hokage. Perhaps the greatest of all of us, he said with sincerity and a loving smile. Who is training him? The Sannin asked curiously. Kakashi is his Jonin sensei. Tenzo is also training him, but it's mainly his Mokotan. The wise toad nodded thoughtfully. Hiruzen saw his expression and narrowed his eyes. Jiraiya no. Don't even bother. Oh, come on, sensei. That boy is a gold mine. Who better to teach him than me? Jiraiya, I already told you no Naruto-kun. Your intervention will not be appreciated. Oh, come on. No means no. Naruto Koen is Kakashi's apprentice and Tenzo's part-time student. That's all. I'm not going to make you his sensei. I can teach him more than young Kakashi and you know it. He was his father's sensei. You're also supposed to be his godfather and you haven't seen him since he was a baby. I had a job and you know it. The road is not a good place to raise a child. That's bullshit, he shouted angrily. You've been to the village many times and you've never bothered to see him. You haven't even written him a measly letter. As far as Naruto is concerned, you don't exist. That was cruel, sensei, he stated darkly, and you know that I have checked it whenever I could. He also left him a couple of gifts. A couple of gifts in almost 13 years. What a big deal, she snorted and then looked at him intensely. I'm not going to get your chestnuts out of the fire. Not this time. If you want to have something with Naruto Koen, you will have to talk and achieve it on your own. I'm not going to intervene. Very good. I do not need your help. I'm sure the brat will be more than happy to receive training from a Sannin. Without further ado, he went out the window in search of his godson. Oh, Jiraiya. If you think everything is going to be so easy, you are very wrong. If it was the old Naruto you would have a good chance, but not this one. Reminds me so much of Tobirama-sensei. It will be an uphill battle for you. Maybe this will serve as a lesson to you. It's time for you to act according to your age and not like a hormonal teenager. Thus, he stopped thinking about his former student and returned to his paperwork. Worrying about what he was going to go through wouldn't do her any good. As she had told him, he would not intervene. He would depend solely on his efforts and the blonde's mentality. He could only pray that everything turned out well in the end. Naruto stretched a little. He had finished the morning training and his body was a little sore. Kakashi could be a slave driver when he put his mind to it. Once satisfied, he left the training ground in the direction of Ichiraku. He had met Karin there to eat and then visit Hinata. Maybe he went to a flower shop earlier to buy her some flowers. He didn't want to show up in her room without some gift. It was his duty as her boyfriend to spoil her. Hey boy, a voice called him. Curious, he turned towards the sound. He quickly identified the man and a grim expression appeared on his face. It was the damn pervert who had been spying on the hot springs the day before. What do you want? She asked sharply. He wasn't even going to go through the trouble of pretending to be nice. That guy didn't deserve it. A shiver ran through the white-haired boy when he heard it. It was the same tone Minato used when he was walking the fine line between annoyed and pissed off. I want to talk to you, he said bluntly. About what? She snapped at him with annoyance. If you expect me to apologize for yesterday, you're clear. You deserved it for, yes. It's not about that. I would like to know how you learned that technique. It is none of your business. And he speaks now before I leave. I'm meeting my cousin for lunch and I don't want to keep her waiting. Wow, boy, you don't have to be so harsh. The blonde sent him a withering look. Anyway, to what I was coming to. I would like to take you as my apprentice. You should feel honored that, past. I have two wonderful senseis. I don't need a dirty old man like you. I actually had 6 senseis. 7 if you counted Izuna. Although the latter acted more as Madara's assistant teacher. Boy, don't you know who I am? I am the gallant Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary Sannin and sage of Mount Mayaboku. You should feel honored that someone like me wants you as an apprentice. Many would kill for an opportunity like that. Well, go find one of those many because I'm not interested, and, frankly, I'm quite disappointed with what I've seen of the Sannin so far. A psychotic traitor who is after my body and a perverted savant who spies in the hot springs. I'd like to believe the last member of the group is better, but something tells me he's not. Have a good day. She didn't say the last sentence sincerely, but it served as closure and she turned to leave. Wait, what did you mean by going after your body? Has Orochimaru gone after you? He questioned horrified. Yes, it was. She attacked me when I was in the second part of the Chunin exam. Luckily she was able to trick him and get out of there without a cursed seal, she replied without giving it any importance. The black-eyed man breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to think about what would have happened if his former teammate had managed to tag him. It seemed like he had another pending discussion with his sensei. He should have warned him that Orochimaru went after Naruto. Although he was a little obvious now that he thought about it. That damn snake was always intrigued by Ida Shodame's Mokotan. When he was going to say something else to the blue-eyed man, he realized that he had already left, probably in a shunshin taking advantage of his lack of concentration. Sai. His first meeting was anything but good. The second one wasn't much better. Maybe he should look for another approach. Several 100 meters away, the Uzumaki continued on his way towards Ichiraku as if nothing had happened. She didn't want anything to do with that man. Call him petty or overly demanding, but that guy didn't give him a good first impression and the second one, if anything, made him worse. Tobirama had explicitly warned him about guys like him. They were never consistent and in the long run were more of a burden than a help. He shook his head. She wasn't going to waste her time thinking about that guy. It was nothing like him and hopefully she would never see him again. A shiver ran through him. Desai. It seemed like she had cursed herself. Brilliant. Chances are she'll see him later. He reached his favorite food stall in no time. Although the town, for the most part, changed its mind about him and he was able to enter many other establishments, Ichiraku was and always would be his favorite. He would never forget the kindness they showed him when he was just an orphan with no apparent clan. "You're late," was the first thing he heard when he entered the stall. "Sorry. Yesterday's damn pervert delayed me," she apologized. "Were you spying on the hot springs again?" she asked him with a disgusted expression. The red-eyed woman had heard the man scream and the women who came out told the rest what they saw. After the Jinchuriki returned home, she asked him if he knew anything about it and he told her what he did. It should be said that she approved of his actions with all her heart. "No, I ran into him when I left the training ground. Apparently his name is Jiraiya and he is one of the Sannin. He offered to make me his apprentice, but I declined. I am very happy being Kakashi-sensei's apprentice. I'm not interested in his offer at all. Besides, I suspect that his interest in me is due to the rumors that I am a prodigy and Mamokotan. Naruto-kun, they are not rumors. You are a prodigy. From what you have told me and I have seen myself, your learning curve is extraordinary. If you're not a prodigy, I don't know who is. I don't feel comfortable with people calling me a prodigy or genius. It implies that I got my strength out of nowhere or that it required little effort. I have worked very hard to be at the level I am today. Not to mention that for years people called me a failure. I can't help but think sometimes about the hypocrisy of people." The former Kusakunoichi was going to say something to him, but someone beat her to it. "Don't worry about that, Naruto-kun. My father and I always knew that one day you would be a great shinobi." "Thank you, Ayame Nee-chan. I know that you and Teuchi Ohi-san have always believed in me. You can't imagine how much it has meant to me," she told him with a soft and grateful smile. "It was a pleasure. Now, what can I serve you?" They both ordered their orders and ate heartily. Father and daughter couldn't help but internally wonder what it would be like if those two had children. The old cook was sure that this single family could pay all his bills and give him a good profit margin. Not that he would say it out loud. He knew that the boy was in a relationship with another girl. Although he had been able to notice the redhead's interest in his favorite client. Once they finished eating, they went to a flower shop to get a bouquet for Hinata. Welcome to the Yamanaka flower shop. How can I help you? Hello Ino. I'm surprised you're here working instead of training for the finals, the Senjuer greeted. Hello Naruto. I'm glad to see you. I have wanted to apologize to you for a while for my treatment of you at the academy. At that time I was obsessed with Sasuke and I didn't see beyond it. I'm sorry. Don't worry. That's a thing for the past. Although I'd really like to know why you're not training. Oh that. I'm going to give up as soon as the game starts. There is no way I'm going to face Gaara. I know my strength and I know he would kill me. I'm sorry to hear that. Although it is true that Gaara is dangerous, you should not fear for your life. The supervisor is there to keep things from escalating too much. And if not, I would protect you like I did Lee. It wouldn't let me kill you. The blonde's cheeks blushed slightly. She knew he was just being nice and wasn't interested in her. She was dating Hinata after all. But she couldn't help but think how chivalrous it was of her. She cursed herself for not noticing him when she was at the market. They could have been a cute couple. Thanks for the cheering. But I'll have to decline. Anyway, how can I help you? I would like a bouquet of flowers to take to Hinata-chan. Oh. I think I have just what you need. Give me a minute. The blue-eyed girl returned in a minute with a beautiful bouquet of flowers. The Mokutan user thanked her for her help and paid for them. She didn't notice the longing sigh that her former classmate let out just after leaving the store. Thank you again, Karin. I know I've said it many times, but thank you. You have nothing to thank, Naruto-kun. I'm happy to have been able to help. Both Uzumaki were at the entrance to the hospital waiting for Hinata to come out. Under normal circumstances, the black-haired girl would have been stuck in the hospital all month. Fortunately, the redhead's bloodline was able to completely heal the internal injuries that Neji gave her. The only reason she hadn't gotten out of it sooner was because the doctors wanted to keep her under observation just in case. Naruto-kun, Karin. They both turned towards the voice to see the pearl-eyed girl smiling happily at them. The doctor had already discharged him. She would not be able to return to active duty for another week and she was not recommended to do strenuous exercise, but otherwise she was fine. Hinata-chan, I'm glad to see that you're completely healed, he smiled at her. The red-eyed girl snorted. Was there any doubt? My healing skills are excellent. The bride and groom laughed lightly at the former Kusakunoichi's small outburst. Where do you want to go, Hinata-chan? We are celebrating your release from the hospital. Naruto-kun, don't you have training today? Nah. I told Kakashi-sensei about your release and my plans to celebrate and he gave me the day off. Tomorrow I will have a hell of a workout. But today I'm free. How about we have a picnic in nature? I'm sure you know some nice, quiet place to hang out, the Uzumaki suggested. It's not a bad idea. What do you think, Hinata-chan? That seems fine to me. But first we would have to prepare some necessary things for the picnic. Don't worry, he made a hand seal, Kakebunsin no Jutsu, half a dozen duplicates appeared, you know what to do, the replicas nodded and left, why don't we take a little walk while my clones take care of everything? Both girls readily accepted. With some steps, they walked through the town a little before entering the forest. It didn't take them long to reach a meadow full of flowers where a blanket had been set up on the ground with a basket on top. The young women, feeling a little mischievous and curious about what was inside, smiled at each other and ran towards the basket, leaving the blonde behind. They pouted as they saw that its contents were several storage scrolls. The blue-eyed man chuckled at his actions. The storage scrolls were necessary so he could bring everything he wanted in a single picnic basket. He never imagined they would do something like this. But he wouldn't deny that he had fun about it. He picked up the basket as the female Gainins continued to pout and grabbed the scroll labeled games. She unrolled him in the blanket and channeled chakra. A cloud of smoke later, there were several board games there. Now, what do you want to play, laddies? She asked them with her sly smile. What do you think if we play, Ron, the tickle monsters are coming? Hinata and I will be the tickle monsters, and you are prey. Without any further warning, the redhead launched herself at the Senju heir. The black-haired woman followed her a second later. Despite the short notice, the Jinchuriki managed to dodge the first charge and began to flee. The place was filled with the sound of playful shouts, laughter, and the occasional crash. After playing for a while, they sat down and ate some of the things that were sealed. The poor cinnamon buns disappeared before the Uzumaki had a chance to try them. At one point, the Mokotan user had to retreat due to an urgent call of nature, leaving the two girls alone. Do you like it? It is not like this? The Hyuga suddenly released. What? What are you talking about? The red-eyed girl stammered nervously. The Byakugan user sent him a soft, understanding look. I've seen how you interact with him. That's not cousin love, she told him calmly. The former Kusakunoichi squirmed uneasily in her spot. She considered lying to him, but she ruled it out. Resigned, she sighed. Yeah. He admitted. He like it. A is the sweetest boy I have ever met. Without even knowing me, he did everything to help me. I know he did it because we're from the same clan and he sees me as family, but that only makes him cuter in my opinion. I have tried to control what I feel, but I can't. I know that you and him are dating and I have no intention of getting in the way. I just need time to convince my heart that Naruto Koen is not for me. I know how you feel, Karin. Something very similar happened to me. I noticed Naruto Koen after he saved me from some bullies when he didn't even know me. I was watching him from afar for years. Seeing how he never gave up. Despite how hard things were. Despite all the people he told him he would never make it. He always kept going. His determination, his courage, along with his kindness, were what made me fall in love with him. I wanted so much for him to notice me. I reproached myself for my shyness and lack of self-esteem for which I never approached him. I came to believe that I could never be by his side. But you did it. You are now in a relationship with Naruto-kun. Yeah. But not on my initiative. It was Naruto-kun who approached me and asked me on a date. Even though I was the one in love, he had to be the one to take the first step. How in the end doesn't matter. You are together. That's what counts, she stated with a bittersweet smile. The heiress smiled softly at her and put a hand on her shoulder. I'm not telling you this to discourage you. Nor to console you. What I'm trying to convey to you is, don't give up. If you love him, go for him. Don't do what I did. But, you are dating him. You're basically telling me to chase your boyfriend, she commented, dumbfounded and confused. Naruto Koen is the last male Senju and the only one who can prevent the Senju clan from becoming extinct. A is also the last known male Uzumaki. I wouldn't be surprised if the council passed a law or something so that Naruto Koen can have more than one wife to ensure that his clans don't become extinct. I prefer to share Naruto Koen with someone who really loves him and not his position and power. What happens if you are wrong and he is not allowed to have more than one wife? He asked defensively. You will continue to be part of the family. You have to marry Naruto Koen no matter what. It is the only way I can give up my position as heir in favor of my sister and that neither of us ends up sealed. If it weren't for that, marrying Naruto Koen would be the least of it as long as I could be with him. You are not limited. You can be with him even if you don't get married. Wouldn't you mind if your husband had a lover? He questioned incredulously. As long as it's you, I don't care. You are a good person and you love him. Naruto Koen deserves all the love and happiness that he was denied for years. Before the redhead could say anything else, a voice was heard in the clearing. Now I'm back. What do you want to do next? We could look at the board games you brought out earlier. In the end we didn't even look at them, the pearl-eyed girl offered. The Jinchuriki nodded and the red-eyed woman didn't say anything. For the rest of the day, the black-haired girl's words echoed in the head of the former Kusakunoichi. On the one hand, the idea was crazy and made her feel a little uncomfortable. On the other hand, Hinata was offering in good faith to share her boyfriend, allowing her to be with the boy who had captured her heart. That night she dreamed of a handsome blonde man with blue eyes and mustache marks hugging and kissing two women, a black-haired woman with pearly eyes and a red-haired woman with red eyes. The three of them were surrounded by several children of different ages who looked like one or two of the adults. Naruto did some stretches, focusing mainly on his right arm and shoulder. His training with the Chidori was going quite well, but that day he had gone too far and had paid the price. Kakashi dismissed him for the day to give him time to recover. He also informed him that his training that day with Tenzo was cancelled. Sigh. He didn't know what to do with his free time. Hinata was busy at the Hyuga complex with a matter she did not specify, and Karin was at the hospital doing her internship. The redhead decided that she wanted to become a medical ninja and he supported her wholeheartedly. Hey, Keith, do you want to? Before I could finish the question, he was already gone in a shunshin. The blonde clicked his tongue in annoyance. Jiraiya had been very insistent in his attempt to accept him as a teacher. Though bad he wasn't the least bit interested. Many would be drooling for the opportunity to be a student of one of the Sannin. It does not. He had legends and elite shinobi as teachers. It didn't need more. Not even the opportunity to summon the toads made him hesitate. He had nothing against toads. He knew that they were one of the most powerful contracts there was, and the Jondai Mai, one of his idols despite making him a Jinchuriki, was an ancient summoner. That made them even more attractive. But he didn't want to deal with the pervert. Maybe I should get my own summoning contract so he'll leave me alone? He muttered to himself. He thought carefully about the matter. There were only two ways to get a summoning contract: have someone give you the contract to sign, or summon without a contract to go to Earth with the animal you have the most affinity for. He knew of 5 people who had a contract. 3 of them were the Sannin and it was a no-no each. Then there was Gigi with his monkey summoning. Unfortunately, it was a family contract and he highly doubted that he could sign it even though the Sendame was a grandfatherly figure to him. Lastly there was Kakashi-sensei with his summoning of dogs. Although he didn't doubt that he would let him sign it if he asked, he didn't see himself as a dog summoner. That left him only one option. Perform the summoning technique without having signed any contract. Hand in hand he was reluctant to do so. It was known that not all summons liked humans. It could very well be dangerous for him. There was also the fact that he wasn't 100%. In the end he shrugged and decided to give it a try. As they say, he who does not risk does not gain. He looked for a quiet place without people and did the technique. In a puff of smoke he was no longer in the human world. The first thing he saw when the smoke cleared was a jungle. She looked everywhere trying to see an animal, but had no luck. She looked at the ground, the trees and even the sky in case they were birds. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it didn't matter how much she walked. Except for some insects she did not see any animals. And something told him that insects were not the summoning animal. Hello. Anyone here? She asked out loud, hoping that someone or something would hear her. Hey friend, what are you doing here? A voice asked him. He frowned and looked around more carefully, trying to find the source of the voice. She even used her sensory abilities, but nothing. I am looking for the animal of this summoning realm. I would like to sign your contract, she responded without stopping searching. There was a ripple in one of the trees and revealed a greenish-yellow chameleon. She was surprised to say the least. She should have been able to sense it with her sensory abilities. Oh great. A new summoner. It's been more than a century since we had one, said the animal, approaching. Hello. My name is Issei. That's yours? Naruto, Naruto Senju Uzumaki. It's nice to meet you, Issei, she spoke politely. I'm wondering the same. Come on. Ieji take you to the elders. I'm sure they'll be happy to meet you, she stated happily. Along the way, the chameleon told the blue-eyed man about the abilities his clan had. They were primarily infiltration and intelligence-gathering animals, but they could do everything: messaging, combat, trapping, transportation, medical assistance, and so on. The Jinchuriki couldn't have been happier with his animal affinity. They were extremely versatile and useful for any situation. They also reminded him of his old joking personality. Who would have thought chameleons were so mischievous? Along the way he was able to notice a small handful of chameleons of different colors and sizes. However, it bothered her that she couldn't feel them until they were visible. How the hell was that possible? The journey came to an end when they arrived at a kind of temple. There were 2 chameleons twice, if not 3 times as big as an adult person guarding the door. The one on the left was dark purple and wore black armor along with 2 swords at waist height. The one on the right was burnt orange and wore reddish armor that reminded him a lot of Madara's along with a sword on his back whose guard peeked out from his right shoulder. Issei, what are you doing here? And who is the human? Asked the chameleon on the left in a deep voice. I have come to bring this human before the elders. He wishes to become our summoner, he answered them. The genin stepped forward and bowed briefly. Nice to meet you. I am Naruto Senju Uzumaki, heir to the Sanjo clan. I hope to work alongside you one day. Good manners, boy. Although I imagine it is a basic requirement for a clan heir, commented the purple chameleon. It's a pleasure to meet you, Naruto-san. I'm Kagome, and this is my partner, Taro. I also hope to work with you in the future, the orange chameleon was introduced. Wow. Now that that's out of the way, let's go to the elders, said the yellow one. Not so fast, Issei. You know the protocol. First you have to ask for an audience, explained the one in the reddish armor. Yeah. Even if your grandfather is one of the elders, you have to follow the rules. This is not a courtesy visit. So we have to ask for an audience, said the one in black armor. I'll go tell the elders. I will return as soon as possible, the chameleon with a sword announced before entering the temple. So you are the grandson of one of the elders, eh? The Mokotan user couldn't help but comment. Hey? Oh yeah. My grandfather is one of the elders. Actually, my grandfather is the 3rd oldest chameleon in the entire clan. How many elderly people are there? Menos 12, but Keitaro does not participate in the council. A is the oldest of them all and tends to meditate or be in a trance most of the time. Elder Keitaro has an extraordinary connection with nature. Some say that when he is in a trance he is actually uniting his soul to the flow of energy, Taro said. Wow, I was actually impressed. Yeah. Our clan may not be as well known or acclaimed as the toads, slugs and snakes. It is also true that we do not have a sage mode or a seer among us. But that doesn't mean we have our own set of unique skills that other summoning clans don't have. Elder Keitaro, although he cannot see the future, is able to see anything that happens in the present. It is that the old man hardly comes out and stays mostly quiet about what he sees. The blonde sweat dropped at the last part. The black chameleon had been speaking very respectfully of Keitaro, only to insult him at the end. He didn't know what to say about that. Son Kagome came out and announced that the elders were waiting for him. Issei went with him since she was curious about what she was going to go through. Naruto surreptitiously observed the interior of the temple, analyzing the place. The highlight of the place was the proportion. Everything was built on a larger scale than you would find in a human temple. It was probably because the chameleons that frequented the place were much larger than an average human. Another point would be the decoration. She reminded him in some ways of the full Sanju. It was elegant but not ostentatious. The paintings in the hallway depicted various chameleons and scenes of what he assumed were important clan moments or celebrations. After a brief tour they found themselves in front of some huge doors made of what he identified as mahogany. Kagome opened the doors and let them in without saying a word. Once the blonde and the little chameleon entered, he closed the doors and returned to his position. The Elder Council room was a huge room. In the center was a U-shaped table that pointed towards the door. The table had 12 chairs, each one occupied by a chameleon except one, which was the second to the left of the joining part of the U. Ah, Issei-kun, it's good to see you, said a greenish-yellow chameleon in the seat to the left of the empty chair. Hello, Grandpa, the little animal greeted cheerfully. Aim, the chameleon to the right of the empty seat cleared her throat to attract attention. She was a mix of blue and green. Like the rest of the chameleons in the room, she was wearing a simple dark green tunic with dark brown trim and some gold embroidery. Hello, young human. I am Chiyo, the leader of this council in the absence of my older brother Keitaro. To my right is my little brother Hideki, Issei-kun's grandfather, and to my left is my other little brother, Kano, the one mentioned was a light green chameleon. I will let the rest of the elders introduce themselves. Nice to meet you, young man. I'm Kibo. The chameleon appeared next to Hideki, which was purple. Hello. It's a pleasure to meet new people. I'm Jua, the chameleon next to Kibo, who was pink, greeted animatedly. Delighted. I'm Raiden, said the reddish-orange chameleon. Nice to meet you. I'm Joko, the lilac chameleon. Kuta, the dark blue chameleon spoke briefly. My name is Mika, dear, the maroon chameleon. I'm Natsuki. Nice to meet you, the blue-white chameleon. The best for last, right? Hello. I'm Kasumoto, the youngest of the elders, the red chameleon commented with a big smile. Nice to meet you all. I am Naruto Senju Uzumaki, heir to the Sanjo clan, he bowed in respect. It's good to see a young man with manners. Clan heir or not, Chio commented with an affectionate smile. Yeah. Youth has no respect lately, the red chameleon agreed. You're not one to talk, Kasumoto. Despite being a few hundred years old, you still behave like a child. Several chameleons laughed. Now, seriously, we would like to know a little about you. This summoning clan, like any other, has its standards. Even if we haven't had a summoner for a long time, we won't accept someone unworthy. Of course. What do you want to know? The blonde asked respectfully. Before the blue and green chameleon could speak, the door opened. To the surprise of all the chameleons present there, and the curiosity of the blue-eyed boy, a yellowish-green chameleon entered. Chijo-chan, there is no need to question this young man. He is more than worthy of signing our contract. Keitaro Nii-sama, the aforementioned said surprised. The oldest of his kind looked at the Jinchuriki with a fond grandfatherly smile. You have lived a very interesting life, Naruto-kun. It was always fun watching you play pranks on people. And although it turned out well in the end, it was very irresponsible of you to perform a forbidden technique without really understanding it, he scolded him lightly at the end. Ass. He asked surprised. Very easy, young man. Asian Kano told you, I can see everything that happens in the world when I meditate. I've seen everything you've been through since your birth. Did you see my birth? Do you know who my parents are? She couldn't help but ask with some desperation in her voice. Despite having matured mentally and having created his pseudo-family, he has always wanted to know who his biological parents were. I saw your birth and I know who your parents were. But it's not my place to tell you. The one you call Gigi will give you your answers once you ascend. Have a little patience. Nodded. She wasn't exactly happy, but she understood. She had waited years to know the answer. What were a few more days? One more thing, Naruto-kun, she came out of her thoughts when she heard him speak, the one who is looking for your body has a member of your clan with him. She has heard about you and it is likely that she will try to contact you so that she can escape from him. A is expected to arrive in Konoha 3 days before the finals. He has valuable information about the snake's plans that he will try to exchange for asylum in your village. He suggests that you contact the person who was the supervisor of the second part of the exam. Like said woman, she possesses a cursed mark. It would be good if you looked for a counterseal for that brand with the help of Mido. I will do that. Thanks for the information. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. Now, where did we keep the summoning scroll? He muttered the second part to himself. We keep it in the scroll room, Keitaro Nii-sama. We didn't move it from there, he informed her. Oh, true. Thank you, Chijo-chan. She had forgotten. Come-on, Naruto-kun, Issei-kun. I will take you to the scroll room. I better go with you. Lest you have also forgotten where the scroll room is, the blue and green chameleon sighed. Because he spent most of his time meditating and joining the flow of energy in the world, the elder tended to forget certain things. He could remember his life and most of what he sees when he meditates, but sometimes he forgot certain elements due to the great knowledge he had. Or was it old age catching up with him? Much appreciated, Chijo-chan, the yellowish-green chameleon said with a warm smile to his little sister. I'll go too. I would like to spend some time with my grandson after he finishes everything, Hideki stated. Oh. I'm going too. It's always exciting to see a new summoner sign our contract, the pink chameleon signed up. Oh, joie, dear. For you, everything that has to do with something or someone new is exciting, Mika commented, half amused and half exasperated. I don't see what's wrong with that, she tilted her head in confusion. The maroon chameleon just shook her head. The purple chameleon laughed. Let her enjoy. If you want to see our new summoner sign the contract, go see it, Kibo supported. Jip. What he said, the Rose agreed, to the amusement of more than a few. Once that cleared up, the 5 chameleons and the human left the Elder Council room and went to the scroll room. The scroll room was a large room with the walls full of pictures of people with chameleons around them. It didn't take a genius to know, or at least suspect, that these people were the former summoners of the clan. In the center of the room was a pedestal made of rosewood with a large rolled scroll on top. For Bart. Pick it up, open it and sign with your blood in the first unnamed slot, Keitaro encouraged him. The Mokotan user did it carefully. The scroll itself didn't seem fragile in the slightest, but he didn't want to risk it. It was a little surprised by the considerable list of summoners the chameleons had had. Even more so taking into account the different surnames. He could identify 8 clans and there were still surnames that didn't sound familiar to him. Pushing all those things aside, he took out a kunai and cut his finger. He quickly signed the scroll knowing that his injury would not last long. Finally, he left an imprint of his footprints with the remaining blood. It was ready. Congratulations, Naruto-kun. You are now a summoner of the Chameleon clan, the older elder congratulated him. Yeah. We have a new summoner, as he celebrated and Joy joined him. Naruto smiled. It was happy to have such a versatile and fun summoning contract. Naruto returned to Konoha in a puff of smoke. He smiled with satisfaction at what he had experienced in the last few hours. The chameleons really were a useful and interesting summon. He shook his head. This was no time to have your head in the clouds. She had to go see the resurrected ones. He dug a finger into the ground to extend his sensory abilities just as Tobirama-sensei taught him. It took her a minute but she was able to locate them. Surprisingly, they were all together. Although, now that she thought about it, she was becoming quite normal lately. Maybe it was because of Izuna's arrival. He channeled chakra into his legs and headed to his location. She couldn't wait for the Nadame to teach her the Hiraition. She knew it wasn't as fast and comprehensive as the Yondame's, but she still found it cool and useful. In his haste, he wasn't as aware of his surroundings and bumped into someone. Sorry. My mistake. He wasn't paying attention, the Jinchuriki apologized. He looked at the person he had bumped into and it was none other than Tamari, the Sand Kunoichi. No problem. I wasn't paying attention either, she said diplomatically. She recognized him instantly. It wouldn't do to get on the bad side of the heir to one of the most prestigious clans in the village. Not to mention the killer instinct she released in the preliminaries. She reminded him eerily of her little brother, Gaara. Still, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I was on my way to see someone and in my haste I didn't pay attention. Not that that's an excuse. Once again, I'm sorry. If he remembered correctly, the girl was the eldest daughter of the Kazakage. It would not be well regarded for him to make the young woman unlucky. She would look bad in the image of Konoha and her clan. Like I said, nothing happens. No one was hurt so there's no fault, she sent him a polite smile. Still I feel bad for bumping into you. Can I do something to make it up to you? If it weren't for knowing that the boy was just being polite, she would have thought he was flirting with her. Honestly, she wouldn't care. Because she was the daughter of the Kazakage and Gaara's sister, no one approached her out of fear. It would be refreshing to have a boy's attention for once. She also had to admit to herself that he was a good catch. She pitied that she couldn't get anything out of there considering the future invasion by Izuna. She didn't know that the blonde already had a girlfriend. Wow. You don't know the village much. Maybe you can give me a tour and recommend a store or two, she offered. The blue-eyed boy smiled softly at him and complied with his request. At the first opportunity he would send a Kagabunshin towards the Edo Tensei. The first thing was to fix the possible disaster that he almost caused. Tobirama-sensei would give him hell of training with a lone lecture if he didn't do it. The white-haired man took protocol and decorum very seriously. Since he was the heir to his clan and wished to become Hokage one day, he had hammered those lessons into his head. As they calmly walked through the streets, they had a small conversation. "So, how have things been going for you so far? Abe, you liked Konoha? It is a nice place. Much colder than I'm used to. But a warmer temperature is appreciated," she responded non-committally, to which the Uzumaki nodded. "I can understand. I've heard that the temperature in Suna during the day is very high," she commented lightly. "You have no idea. There are some days when the temperature can exceed 40 degrees, she sighed. "That's harsh," he sympathized. "Couldn't your people create a barrier seal to regulate the temperature?" "I wish," he sighed sadly. "Unfortunately, Fuinjutsu users are somewhat scarce in my village. No one has enough knowledge to create something like that. Couldn't the higher-ups ask Konoha for help in this regard? We have some good Fuinjutsu users in our ranks," he frowned, to which the blonde followed him. "I don't think it's that simple. Even if we are allies, Konoha would ask for something in exchange for that seal. Suna is in very bad shape financially and I don't think the council is willing to give techniques and methods of making our arsenal." The Mokotan user's skull deepened. If things were so bad for his allies, why hadn't they done something about it? "I can't promise anything, but I will talk to Hokage-sama about this matter. Suna is our ally and we should be able to help you without receiving anything in return. If necessary, I will investigate the barrier seal myself. I have advanced knowledge of Fuinjutsu and an excellent teacher of the art. It will take some time, but I think I can do it." His words surprised the green-eyed girl immensely. She didn't expect the young men next to her to care so much about her home, even if they were technically allies at the moment. He smiled sadly at this fact. His village was planning to betray and attack the Leaf, and the Senju was looking for ways to help them. In truth, sometimes, reality could be cruel and ironic. "Thank you. I appreciate the effort," she thanked him sincerely. "It doesn't matter. Like I said, we are allies. It is natural that we help each other." "Hey. Many wouldn't see it that way," she commented with light black humor. "That's because they only care about themselves and those who are closest to them. Truly that is the cause of so much war and conflict. They only see what is in front of them and not the whole picture. And, even if they did see it, they don't care. It doesn't help that every village teaches its shinobi to only care about the future of their village. They don't teach empathy. Instead, they are taught to suppress their emotions and just focus on the mission, no matter the cost. That's what a shinobi is. A weapon or tool at the service and protection of your village. There is no room to think anymore. And that is the problem. You don't think about the rest. Even among allies, outsiders are not taken into account. It's our way of life," said the weasel summoner with a sad smile. "Only because we don't know any other. I know I'm going to sound pretentious. But one of my goals is to change the current shinobi system. Make him more empathetic without leaving aside other values. Good luck with that. A steep path awaits you. If not completely vertical," he joked. "I know. But remember that a chakra exercise is precisely to stick to surfaces and walk on them regardless of whether they are vertical or upside down," she reminded him with a playful smile. "Touche," he granted with an amused smile. He smiled at her with amusement dancing in his eyes. The Sand Kunoichi couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. Naruto was an unusual young man. He was kind and dreamy, but at the same time a strong and determined shinobi. It really was something. The next few hours were spent touring Konoha while talking about one topic or another. At dinner time they went to a small establishment to eat and then the blonde dropped her back at her hotel. Temari sighed in content as she fell onto the bed. His time with the Senju was the closest thing to a date he had ever had in his life. It had been nice and a welcome change of pace. Not to mention how attentive the boy had been to sacrifice much of the afternoon and some of the night to compensate for a mistake that, in his eyes, was minuscule. So many noises in the next room made her groan in annoyance. Kankuro must have been making some adjustments to her puppet, again. Sai. Why couldn't I have a normal family? Where are you going, Tayuya? Hirobo asked him. It's none of your business, fat ass, he replied rudely. A young lady shouldn't use that vocabulary, he said with a frown. Bite me. I'm not a fucking lady. I'm a kunoichi, you bag of shit. The orange-haired man sighed in exasperation. She had tried since the Sound 4 was formed to improve the attitude of her partner, without success. The rest of the group ignored her argument, as usual. It happened so frequently that it was already part of the routine. Without further interruptions, the pink-haired girl walked away from the group. They moved lightly and carefully. If anyone from Odo found out that she was betraying them, she would be toast. Orochimaru did not take betrayal well at all. A few months ago the idea of leaving that village was unthinkable. She had nowhere else to go, no one who could help her, and the curse mark the snake Sannin had given her was sure to make things more difficult for her. In short, being a sound kunoichi was her only chance to survive. However, life was curious. When Kabuto brought her usual report with the information of the new Senju heir, things changed radically for her. Naruto Senju Uzumaki. She almost had a heart attack when she heard that name. No one in her life knew it, she wasn't stupid enough to say it out loud, but she was an Uzumaki, or well, half an Uzumaki. Given her soon-to-be former leader's fascination with bloodline users, it was only natural for her to hide her ancestry. For better or worse, she had not awakened any of the Uzumaki clan's Kekkei-Genkai. Her ability to summon dokas with her flute came from the other branch of the family. She thus saved herself from being a test subject. She had tried to gather as much information as possible without being noticeable about the Senju heir. She needed to know everything she could about the boy to be sure of things. She couldn't afford mistakes. Things looked promising from what I had heard. Naruto was a kind and strong person, with a very good relationship with the Hokage, apprentice to one of the elite shinobi of the village, user of Mokutan, and, from the last he had heard, he had taken in an Uzumaki when he found her in the exams. With all that, she could safely bet that he would listen to her and she would have direct access to the Hokage to request asylum in exchange for information. She was standing in front of the wall surrounding the Senju complex when she found herself trapped by Vinyas. Identify yourself, ordered a person who came out of the shadows. You didn't have to be a genius of any kind to know who he was. She had seen a photo of the boy before and the vines were a dead giveaway. The blonde analyzed the young woman he had caught with a stone expression. His chakra was slightly familiar, like what he had with Karin, only weaker. It could also feel a disgusting chakra on his body. That him reminded him of the one with Anko's cursed seal. He assumed that he was the person Keitaro-sama told him about, but he was never too careful to be cautious. I'm Tajuya Uzumaki. I have come to talk to you. It seemed like he was right. He made the vines disappear so he could free her. He then addressed her calmly. I'm glad to see that you have arrived safely. Follow me please. Ieji take you inside the complex so we can talk more comfortably. The kunoichi blinked in confusion a couple of times before accelerating to catch up with him, since he had not waited for her and had continued moving forward. Wait, how come you believe me so quickly? Not that I'm complaining or anything, but it's just fucking weird. Besides, what the hell did you mean that you were glad to see that she had arrived safely? First, language. I understand that we Uzumaki are not the most educated people or with the most refined vocabulary, but we don't have to be vulgar either. Regarding your questions, I could sense in your chakra signature that you are an Uzumaki. I can also tell that you are not a complete Uzumaki and you are only half or a quarter. And before you get me wrong, I have no problem with it. I was just pointing it out. I myself am not a pure Uzumaki. As for what I wanted to say before, Keitaro-sama, the oldest member of the Chameleon contract, warned me that you were coming. I have been preparing for your arrival in recent weeks. The pinkette was quite surprised by his words, before shrugging her shoulders. As far as she knew, several summoning contracts had someone who could see the future and all that stuff. It wouldn't be far-fetched for the chameleons to also have one of those guys. Then, I suppose you know that I am from Odo and who the leader of the village is, he commented with a slight frown. I really hoped Konoha didn't know much about the subject. Information about the invasion was his bargaining chip. Losing her could put her in a screwed situation. Yeah. We also know there will be an attack. Keitaro-sama has been kind enough to give us some information about it. However, he didn't say too much so that you can bring information to the table and therefore have an easier time obtaining asylum. The brown-eyed woman let out a sigh of relief. Even if she had blood from a clan allied to the Leaf and the support of the heir of one of the most prestigious clans of hers, she preferred to have that cushion, just in case. Karin, I'm home. And I come with our cousin Uzumaki, the blue-eyed man shouted from the door. He knew that the redhead could sense him and his companion, but she still did it. The genjutsu user blinked in confusion at what he had called her. She didn't have much time to reflect on it before a girl her age came down the stairs and invaded her personal space. Oh great. Now we are officially three. We Uzumaki are rising again. Hello, I'm Karin Uzumaki. That's great and all, but could you get away from my face? You look like you're going to fucking kiss me. The red-eyed girl, somewhat blushing, moved away with shame. Hate emotion had gotten the better of her and she had not realized her mistake. Tayuya, language, the Hinchuriki Said. Fuck. You sound like that fat-ass Jorobo. I don't know who Jorobo is, but I'll have to agree with him on this one, he murmured loud enough to be heard. Bite me. I'm not a fucking lady. Iyama kunoichi. One thing does not remove the other. There is no reason for you to speak so vulgarly. And I certainly don't advise you at all to talk like that when we are in front of the village's high command. The pink-haired girl quietly murmured a few choice words about what she thought about the matter. The poor medical ninja student blushed up a storm upon hearing certain parts of her ramblings. The cubic container could only sigh and shake her head as she tried to block out what the young woman next to her was saying about her. She idly wondered if the cursed seal was making her more vulgar than she normally would be or if that was just how she was. She was blurting out everything she believed that even Anko would learn some new words. Which led him to the next thought of those two meeting each other and exchanging notes. It became serious in an instant. For the sake of the youngest's innocence, he had to make sure that those two never met. He looked at the former Kusa Kunoichi in front of him. Poor girl had a blush as bad as Hinata's when she was still so shy and she was close to him. It seemed like it was too late to save her innocence. The day of the Chunin exams had arrived. The entire village was buzzing with excitement and anticipation. Some stores had closed so they could go see the tournament. Others had taken the opportunity to take their stalls to the stadium in the hope of making cash. In general, everything was very lively. While the public was filling the stands, the participants were in the arena waiting for the time to compete. Naruto was staring at Neji with a cold fury that sent a shiver through the Hyuga, even if he tried to ignore his gaze and his body's reaction. Gaara was muttering to himself how he was going to give blood to his mother. His brothers looked at him uncomfortable and somewhat scared. Sino was stoic. Ino was nervous. Shikamaru looked like he was going to fall asleep standing up. And there was no sign of Dosu. In the Kage cabin, Hiruzen was welcoming Orochimaru while pretending he didn't know it was him behind the disguise. The information Tayuya had given them included the death of the Kazekage and the impersonation of him. Without further delay, he gave his inaugural address. Attention please. There has been a slight change in the fighting. Due to certain circumstances, Dosu Kinuta will not be able to compete today, so the fourth match will be between Shikamaru Nara and Temari Sabaku, Hinma announced. Brilliant. I saved myself the extra combat. Although now I'll have to fight a girl, again. How problematic, thought the shadow user. The green-eyed girl had the sudden urge to hit her opponent on the head with her iron fan. Please let everyone except Naruto Senju Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga leave the arena. Once done he addressed both the competitors and the public. First match of the Chunin exam finals, Naruto Senju Uzumaki against Neji Hyuga. Get started. Are you prepared to pay for what you did to Hinata-chan? The blonde asked him while he cracked his knuckles. You do not scare me. I will beat you like I did my loser cousin. Destiny has named me the winner, she responded as she stood in her Juken stance. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but you're not going to win. No. Scratch that. I'm not sorry to burst your bubble. I'm going to win. I'm going to crush you. I'll make you pay for what you did to Hinata-chan in the preliminaries, she told him with icy eyes. Like I said, you don't scare me. Destiny is on my side. Your mouth says that, but your body tells me the opposite. Don't you see how you tremble? How unstable your posture is? It was true. The raven-haired man was trembling even if he didn't realize it until he mentioned it. His body was unconsciously reacting to the imminent danger. The blue-eyed man had to contain a malicious smile. His shaking was caused by something Madara taught him that month of training. The former Uchiha patriarch had been dissatisfied with the use of killer instinct. Yes, he wanted his enemies to fear him, but not in that way. It was from that he created something similar but more subtle and effective since no one would train against it. Instead of using the killer instinct to send people images of his death and scare them, he used his chakra to create pressure on his enemy. The user could modify it so that it was light and only caused some danger to its victim, as was happening to Neji, or so that it was very strong and crushed its enemy to the ground. So far, the co-founder of Konoha had only met a very small and select handful of people who could cope with his technique at full power and continue fighting. Curiously, or perhaps not so much, he was reduced to the group of resurrected ones. The Hinchuriki himself still couldn't withstand all the force of pressure that Madara could cause at full power. Prepare to be humiliated, Neji-chan, the Mokotan user sneered with a bloodthirsty smile. Before the white-eyed man could react, he received a punch in the jaw that sent him flying. Channeling chakra into his legs, the chameleon summoner ran towards where his opponent was going to land and positioned himself to knee him in the back during his fall. The Byakugan user let out a pitiful moan as he fell to the ground in pain. You say that Hinata-chan is a failure. That she is weak and pathetic. Well, Neji-yuga, I say that you are the pathetic one. We've barely been in combat for a minute and you're already on the ground at my feet. To add insult to injury, he kicked him away from him. Damn member 9 rolled several times before losing momentum. He didn't need his dojutsu to know that he had a broken rib or two. Get up, Neji-yuga. Note that fate had named you the winner. Get up and show me what you can do. Hinata-chan stood up even when you almost killed her. Won't you get up when your wounds are less than his? With great difficulty, Guy's student stood up. His left hand gripping his ribs. His right hand on her thigh as he tried to stay standing. His breathing was labored due to his injuries. His blood boiled at the words of his adversary. Being considered less than his weak cousin was unforgivable. It would show the blonde that, Sanjuer or not, he was the stronger of the two. Ignoring the pain, he charged at his opponent with his Byakugan active. The blue-eyed man dodged the attack easily and sent an elbow to his ribs. A crack was heard and the white-eyed man screamed in pain as he fell to his knees clutching his ribs. You are a failure, Neji-yuga. Not me. Not Hinata-chan. You, Neji-yuga. You have shown me nothing of your vaunted strength as a supposed prodigy. I've only ever seen a whiny child take out his anger on the only person who really wants to help him. I despise you like you have no idea. You symbolize everything I hate and one of the reasons why this village hated and despised me almost all my life. You're lucky that, despite everything, Hinata-chan still loves you and has asked, if not begged, me not to kill you. If it were up to me, you'd be dead. Of course for you, my love for Hinata-chan far outweighs my disdain for you. Prachter announced the fact. A is not in a position to continue. Winner, Naruto Senju Uzumaki, the supervisor announced. The crowd commented on the game without much enthusiasm. The fight had been completely one-sided, short and boring. They expected much more from the supposed Hyuga prodigy. At the same time, they were slightly surprised by the brutality with which the Senjuer defeated his opponent. Although everyone suspected that it was because of something the dark-haired man did to his girlfriend, which sounded very romantic in the minds of the young girls. Second match, Gaara Sabaku against Tino Yamanaka. Please let the participants go down. Prachter, I resign. There is no way he can beat my opponent, the blonde said. Very good. Winner by loss, Gaara Sabaku. The crowd booed. The first fight was not enough for them and the second there hadn't even been anything. The redhead looked at the blue-eyed girl with a frown before looking at his fellow Jinchuriki and letting him pass. It would be a better catch than the girl ever would be. Third match, Shinoburame against Kankuro Sabaku. Prachter, I resign, the puppet user announced. Very well, the Shiranui Said, winner by loss, Shinoburame. The crowd began to boo even louder. They were supposed to see big battles and they weren't getting what they wanted. Fourth match, Shikamaru Nara against Temari Sabaku. Please let the participants go down. The genin was planning to surrender when his teammate knocked him off the balcony. Hey! What has come? She complained as she stood up. You were going to give up. I saw it in your face, she demanded. Yes, and? You did the same, he protested. I had a good excuse. You do not. Now get off your lazy ass and win the match, he yelled the last part. Problem women, he murmured under his breath. I am. Damn, Diezmember looked forward and saw his opponent with a certain sadistic gleam in his eyes. Oh shit. Shikamaru Nara was many things. He was a lazy person who loved watching the clouds, a genius in the intellectual field, the heir of the Nara clan, a member of Team 10 and a shogi master second only to his father. Likewise, there were many things that it was not. He wasn't an energetic boy, he wasn't stupid, he wasn't reckless, he wasn't good at anything regarding girls and, above all, he wasn't an ostrich, even if he seemed like one at the time. After the supervisor started the match, the blonde made it her personal mission to show him the error of his ways. For that, she diligently used his iron fan as if it were a club. The poor boy never stood a chance. He barely managed to dodge the first blow before the second sent him flying. Deciding to get up despite knowing that he would be troublesome, he did not notice the weapon descending on his head. The final result? Shikamaru Nara doing a perfect ostrich imitation. Winner, Temari Sabaku, Hinma announced between amusement and exasperation. That year's Chunin exams were the least exciting in all of history. The people in the stands booed at the terrible show. The first round had consisted of 2 completely one-sided and boring matches, and 2 matches where one gave up without even trying. In short, they were nothing of what they were expecting and longing for. We will have a 15-minute break before starting the second round. People who placed bets and won went to collect their winnings and make new bets. Others went for food and barra diagonal or drinks. Others went to the bathroom. And others stayed in their seats waiting for the start of the second round. They really hoped things would get better. Well, Kakashi. It seems we are the only ones who have a student still competing. Although I would have preferred if Sino could actually fight in this round, Kurenai commented to his fellow Jonin sensei. Yeah. I'll have to collect my winnings later, the silver-haired man smiled. Don't tell me you bet, my eternal rival, Guy expressed in his unique way. Yes, I do. I couldn't miss the opportunity to earn some easy money, she stated smoothly. Really, Kakashi? I don't think you have cash problems. From what I heard, you and your apprentice have gone from high-ranking mission to high-ranking mission, Asuma contributed his opinion. Me. Do you know what gossip is like? It's true that Naruto and I have gone on a few high-ranking missions, but they've only been a few. And none of them were of S rank, he dismissed. So many people looked at him like he was crazy. The fact that a genin had gone on any high-ranking mission, regardless of the exact number, was already unheard of. Sure, occasionally a mission would level up, but that was very rare and almost no genin had ever had it happen. The green spandex wearer began ranting about the modernity of his eternal rival and the flames of his apprentice's youth. People didn't pay much attention to it. Although they quickly looked away when the man began hugging his student, Lee. No one could understand how they created that unbreakable sunset genjutsu. Attention please. The 15-minute break is now over. Now we will begin the first fight of the second round. Naruto Senju Uzumaki and Gaara Sabaku, please come down to the arena. The redhead used to send Shunshin while the blonde used to leave Shunshin. So many members of the public appreciated their way of going down as a representation of their respective villages. Very well, first fight of the second round, Naruto Senju Uzumaki against Gaara Sabaku. Get started. Quickly using Shunshin, the blue-eyed man moved away from his previous position. Not 5 seconds later, a place was attacked by Isan. If he had stayed there, he would have risked dying. Not wanting to start the match with Mokotan anymore, he performed the hand seals necessary for a Suitan technique. Tobirama had long ago taught him how to condense moisture from the atmosphere. Something that he had been perfecting over time. During his mission in the country of waves, he could not reduce the hand seal so much for the Suetan techniques if he wanted to perform it in the humidity of the environment. At that moment, that was no longer a factor. With only 23 hand seals, he was able to summon a water dragon to attack the Ichibi's Hinchuriki. Yes, the Naden could do the same with only 5 hand seals, but for him to be able to do it with only half as many hand seals was already a great achievement, especially considering that water was not his main element. The Tokusatman invoked the sand to protect him. The wall he made cracked under the force of the Suetan Jutsu. So many large enough cracks allowed some water to reach the other side. Instead of that side discouraging him, it increased his bloodlust. Yes, mother. This Senju is worthy. And soon you will be able to feast on his blood. With a psychopathic look, he sent the sand against his opponent. Because it was wet, he moved slower than he normally would. The next 3 minutes was a battle between sand and water, which could be said to be tied. The people in the stands cheered as it was the most exciting fight they had seen all day. They hoped it would stay that way. Gaara, feeling frustrated at having failed to catch his prey, surrounded himself in a dome of sand with the intention of freeing his bijou. Naruto, knowing what he intended to do, decided to use the Chidori to break through his defense. Plus he knew that he would have to show his dojutsu in combat to make it known. He had been quite insistent that he do it that way so that all potential customers would see that the village still had an active Sharingan user. There was a gasp of surprise as people saw the change in his eyes. It seemed that the Senju also had Uchiha and Sharingan blood. That was very good for Konoha. Sasuke seethed with anger upon noticing them. He couldn't believe that the loser, in addition to surpassing him in every possible way, also had Uchiha blood and had awakened the Sharingan before him. It was unheard of. Once the right hand chakra was properly formed for the technique, he ran at full speed down the wall, the distance to his opponent, dodged the sand missiles that had been fired at him, and penetrated the dome with the Chidori. A deadly silence settled in the stadium, which was first broken by a light drip. Mother, what is this warm feeling? The redhead murmured before realizing, blood. It's my blood. Mother, I'm bleeding, he finished shouting. The dome exploded and a half-transformed Gaara was seen. Feathers descended on the stands. An explosion in the Kage box. The invasion had begun. It seems that Naruto-chan is doing well, Hachirama stated happily. It seems. I'm glad to see that the training I'm giving him isn't wasted, Tobirama commented dryly. Oh, come on. You know as well as I do that he's doing great for someone who doesn't have Suetan as a primary affinity. Not to mention the short time he has been training. I don't understand why you always minimize his achievements, the brown-haired man complained slightly. I don't want it to go to his head. Although his attitude has improved a lot since he started the training, he still retains some of his old tendencies. Not to mention that he looks too much like you, he murmured under his breath the last thing. Naruto-chan is not the arrogant type, he defended passionately. I'm inclined to agree with Hashirama. Naruto is the furthest thing from someone who is arrogant. He can be a little boastful at times, but he's not arrogant, Madara agreed. You see? Even Dara-chan agrees with me. The aforementioned growled at the nickname. It was lucky that they were in a stadium full of people and didn't want to draw attention to themselves. Otherwise, he would have cast a fire dragon at her. It seemed that the only way for him to receive the message was through extreme violence. Although sometimes not even with those. His old friend was a lost cause. It seems that the time has come, Izuna said when he saw the sand dome. Sure enough, Naruto activated his Sharingan in front of the crowd and began to perform the Chidori. It was fun for the resurrected ones to see the general commotion this act caused. They also noticed the anger in Sasuke and shook their heads, for different reasons. The younger Senju saw him as a miniature, weaker version of Madara. The Mokutan user was saddened by the fact that someone so young was so consumed by hatred. Mito thought along similar lines to her husband and brother-in-law. The former Uchiha patriarch was very disappointed at how far his clan had fallen. Izuna had a middle line between the Shodemo Kage and her older brother. They didn't have much time to reflect before the feathers began to fall on them. It didn't take them even 2 seconds to realize it was a genjutsu and dispel it. They looked at the arena in time to see the blonde trap the redhead in a wooden prison, effectively stopping the other Jinchuriki's transformation. Should we go help him? Asked the brown-eyed man. Needless. He has everything under control. We must concentrate on protecting the village, the Nadine responded. I guess the time to hide is over. Although he said the words calmly, the truth was that he was eager to fight. It had been too long since he was last in battle and she missed him. He saw how blood encouraged him to fight. It seems so, the white-haired man commented dryly before launching a water technique towards the attackers. With a malicious smile and a slightly crazy and bloodthirsty look, he released his gumba from the seal on his wrist and charged into battle. Izuna shook his head, let out a sigh and went after him with a sword in hand. He loved his brother, but sometimes he was too much trouble. Much of the male population of the Nara clan sneezed. Even Shikamaru, who was still unconscious in the stadium infirmary, sneezed and mumbled troublesomely in his sleep. The shinobis and kunoichis who were fighting were surprised to see the five resurrected. The league's morale rose a lot seeing them fight at their side. On the other hand, those from Suno were beginning to have serious doubts about the invasion. Gaara had been held back and now they had to fight resurrected legends. Jace, his morale was at rock bottom. In Oro's case, they didn't care and continued trying to kill as many people as possible. Those guys were mainly cannon fodder who believed they were invincible solely by serving under Orochimaru. While this was happening in the stadium, the snake summons on the walls were being repelled by the toad summons with Jiraiya Onga Mabunta's head. Do not fear, because the great and brave Jiraiya is here, he did a little dance and a pose. The toad did not appreciate his actions and jumped abruptly to get him off of him. Because he was more focused on looking good than on sticking to his back, he went flying with an unmanly scream. As luck would have it, she landed in the hot springs, specifically in the women's section. He ran from the scene both to return to the battle and to avoid the beating of the angry women who were chasing him. He would never understand how women could pull out guns seemingly out of nowhere when they caught him looking at them. Note to self. Dr. Pa and Mada contact the Chameleon clan. We urgently need a competent and mature summoner. It's really depressing to know that a 12 or 13-year-old boy is more mature and responsible than a 50-year-old man. Minato's son is our best bet. With that depressing thought, Gamabunta continued the battle. He wasn't the only toad summon who had similar thoughts and was ashamed of his summoner's actions. Ebiki himself, who was there to coordinate the village's defenses, shook his head at the Sanin's actions. Although he respected his abilities as a spymaster and sealmaster, he couldn't respect the man himself because of the foolish things he used to do. Somi-san shinobi who had watched the spectacle wondered if it was some strange ploy of the blade to make them overconfident. Konoha's own ninja would never admit the truth of the matter out loud and would let their enemies believe what they wanted. Anything was better than the truth. The Gainins, some Chunins, and a handful of Naruto clones escorted the civilians to the safe zone. Along the way they were joined by the group of academy students with most of their teachers. The ride was mostly trouble-free. They were only assaulted by a small group of sound shinobi, who were quickly killed. Many of the ninjas in the group and the Blonde Zone clones wondered if those men were Gainins and what were such weak people doing there. Without giving much importance to the matter, they continued on their way, still keeping their guard up. Thanks to the early warning and all the information Tajuya was able to provide, the village was very well prepared for the invasion. It was for that reason that the attackers were repelled or eliminated relatively quickly and easily. The only places where there was real activity were the area of the walls and the stadium and its surroundings. And even there the battles were ending. The Umbu were sweeping the village for possible stragglers and the trackers led by Inuzukas were combing the forest to ensure there were no hidden enemies. Several Kage Bunshin and a pair of the Senjuers Mokubunsin Disepatit, satisfied with their work. It didn't seem like anyone needed his help and they didn't see the need to stay there any longer. Everything was returning to normal and the few surviving enemies were being escorted away for future interrogation. People working in TNI were going to have a lot of work in the near future. Konoha had won once again, proving that they were the strongest shinobi village for a reason. It was unlikely that anyone else would challenge them in the near future. Naruto, we have to talk. Although our male protagonist will have to deal with another problem imminently. And I hope you have enjoyed the video and want more videos like this. Turn on the notification bell. And until then, wait for my next video. And I'll see you all very soon. And goodbye, everyone.